Chapter 37. It was a close call. Wang Yuetong might be a little flustered, but Li Tianlan never lost his cool. The moment the ice wall appeared, he had already reached out his hand and kicked open the door beside him. The beetle hit the ice wall and Li Tianlan jumped out of the car with Wang Yuetong in his arms almost happened at the same time. Li Tianlan stepped on the flying car with his feet in the air. With a little help, the height of the two rose again. A flight of stairs made of pure ice suddenly appeared in the air less than 20 meters away from Li Tianlan. Li Tianlan, who was in the air, flashed slightly with Wang Yuetong in his arms. The next second, he and Wang Yuetong were standing on the flight of stairs in the air. After a day, Li Tianlan entered the ice-condensing realm again. His eyes were cold and ferocious. His real realm was still in the chi-controlling realm. It seemed easy to forcibly improve his realm twice in a short time, but the burden on his body was unimaginable. This was a way to overdraft his potential in advance. It might be an exaggeration to say that he drank poison to quench his thirst. Every time he forcibly improved his realm, it would be a big obstacle to his future path of martial arts. If he did it too many times, he might not be able to reach the invincible realm for the rest of his life. Perhaps there was the risk of not being able to achieve perfection in a certain realm. But under such circumstances, he had to do it. Obviously, this was a well-planned assassination. He and Wang Yuetong were followed as soon as they came out of the Sky Academy. After confirming their destination, they chose an easy place to wait for them. They were fully prepared. It was obviously difficult for him to deal with this kind of assassination in the chi-controlling realm. Even if he was in the ice-condensing realm, it would be difficult for him to deal with it. Now Li Tianlan only hoped that this assassination was aimed at him. After all, at present, his only enemy was the Lu family of Huiting. Xianxia might not like him, but it was only a day after the maneuver. Such an assassination and attack must be a little rushed. The opposite party would not send two strong forces. At least, they would not kill him and Wang Yuetong here. Senior brother Tianlan, their target is probably me. Wang Yuetong finally came to her senses. Her face was flushed as she was held in Li Tianlan's arms. But this chest, which was not so big, was extremely warm, so warm that she didn't even want to get up. "Do you know them?" Li Tianlan subconsciously let go of his hand and asked. "I don't know them, but their attention has always been on me." Wang Yuetong's face was still ruddy, but her eyes gradually sharpened. Standing on the ice stairs, a majestic sword chi flew around her body. In the blink of an eye, a giant sword had been formed behind her. Li Tianlan's heart sank, and he looked in the direction of Wang Yuetong's finger. In his sight, the man and woman who had pretended to be husband and wife at the beginning were sprinting toward him at high speed. Wang Yuetong's beetle accelerated extremely fast. In just a few seconds of acceleration, it had already left the couple hundreds of meters behind. Now, after a few words, the couple had already rushed over. Their target was Wang Yuetong. This was definitely not what Li Tianlan wanted to see. It was not that this siren of the Wang family was very important to Li Tianlan, but that if the other party targeted Wang Yuetong, it would definitely be more terrible and troublesome than if the other party targeted him. Those who targeted him were his enemies. Those who targeted Wang Yuetong were the enemies of the Wang family of Beihai. The Wang family of Beihai was deeply rooted in Jianghu state, and the patriarch Wang Tianzong was the top expert in Jianghu state. In such an environment, the force that dared to lurk in Jianghu state and attack the young core of the Wang family of Beihai was definitely not much worse than the Wang family of Beihai. This was equivalent to a secret competition between two superpowers in the dark world. It could be foreseen that Wang Yuetong was just a beginning. Once she was killed in Huiting, there would be a series of plans next. In such a collision between superpowers, the first party to take action would definitely try to be foolproof. Today, when they came to kill Wang Yuetong, it was normal for there to be experts in the ice-condensing realm, the fire-flaming realm, and even the thunder-shocking realm. Bang! Li Tianlan was thinking, but the attacker did not want to give him so much time. At the moment when the young man and woman rushed over, a violent gunshot suddenly rang out, echoing in the mountain forest. Li Tianlan grabbed Wang Yuetong and flashed away. Another ice stair formed in front of them. The two dodged the bullet and stood on the newly formed ice stair, fully prepared. This body movement is a bit interesting. It doesn't seem to be the unique skill of the Wang family of Beihai. Young man, if you are an outsider, you can leave now. We won't embarrass you. What do you think? The young man and woman who rushed to the ice stair paused slightly. The young woman narrowed her eyes and smiled charmingly. Li Tianlan looked indifferent and said nothing. Not to mention that it was not in his character to leave Wang Yuetong behind in such a situation, and not to mention whether the Wang family of Beihai would vent their anger on him after he left. This carefully prepared assassination was almost impossible for an outsider like Li Tianlan to not kill him. The young woman's words were completely nonsense. No one with a normal IQ would believe it. Who are you? Why do you want to kill me? Wang Yuetong finally spoke. She was completely calm. She looked down at the young man and woman below, her eyes full of pure pride and coldness. Princess, before you die, we will tell you. The young woman smiled more charmingly. Behind such a smile, it represented absolute confidence and the game of cat and mouse, which made people feel very uncomfortable. You? Wang Yuetong sneered. The attacker was not in a hurry to make a move, so naturally, she and Li Tianlan were not in a hurry either. Although this place was not close to the garden party, it was not too far away either. As soon as she reacted, she had already crushed a button on her body, which was the alarm device on her body. Second uncle must have received the news by now. For her, the longer she delayed, the better. As the young woman's smile remained unchanged. She said softly, "Of course not. There are still them." As her voice fell, countless sharp explosions sounded in the air at the same time. In an instant, more than a dozen ice swords broke through the air, and the cold and sharp sword energy whistled in the air, densely packed. Wang Yuetong was stalling for time. The young man and woman in front of her were also waiting for their men to complete the encirclement. It took more than courage to attack the young core of the Wang family of Beihai in Jianghu state. Strength, intelligence, connections, and speed were all indispensable. The young woman did not have the patience to talk nonsense with Wang Yuetong. When her men finished gathering, she started to attack directly without saying anything. The moment the ice swords broke through the air, the giant sword formed behind Wang Yuetong shrank almost in the blink of an eye. The body of the sword shrank, but the sharpness was stronger. In a very short time, it seemed that a large amount of sword energy began to condense toward the shrinking giant sword, but more sword energy went nowhere. More than a dozen ice swords shuttled through the air. Surrounded by sword energy, Wang Yuetong suddenly jumped up from the ice stairs and grasped the hilt of the giant sword behind her. The giant sword had shrunk to nearly 2 meters in a short time, but it still looked huge in Wang Yuetong's hand. Wang Yuetong waved the heavy ice sword in her hand, and the majestic sword energy in the air suddenly became violent. Like the wind. Like the clouds. In an instant, the surrounding air seemed to be twisted into swords and then ice. One after another, delicate but sharp ice swords whizzed and rose around Wang Yuetong's delicate body. There were so many of them. Wang Yuetong's face was pale, and she waved the giant sword in her hand again. In her sight, about a dozen figures rushed out from both sides of the road, echoing the ice swords in the air, and rushed to Wang Yuetong and Li Tianlan together. As she waved the giant sword, Wang Yuetong jumped down the ice stairs and went straight to the crowd below. A large number of exquisite small swords around Wang Yuetong danced wildly as she leaped up. More than a dozen ice swords in the air were torn into powder by the large number of small swords before they could get close. The powder once again condensed into identical small swords in the air and followed Wang Yuetong's body from high to low, rising and falling like huge waves. Wang Yuetong's body landed on the ground. She directly attacked. The sword current, like a huge wave, spun and bloomed in an instant, surrounding more than a dozen attackers in the ice-condensing realm on the ground. On the road, in the dense sword intent, the girl and the sword seemed to reveal an indomitable determination and madness. The unique skill of the Wang family of Beihai. Sword frenzy. The life and death battle was set, but Li Tianlan dared not to act rashly. Although there were many people besieging Wang Yuetong, they were only a group of experts in the ice-condensing realm. The sword frenzy was like a tide of sword intent, which was most suitable for group fighting. Wang Yuetong should have no problem holding on for a while. But the young man and woman in front of him were unpredictable. They did not move, so Li Tianlan could only guard against them, silently looking for a chance to cut into Wang Yuetong's battlefield. Time passed quickly, but for Li Tianlan, every second was like a year. The young man and woman who appeared first but did not move narrowed their eyes at Li Tianlan, and then looked at Wang Yuetong, who was a little embarrassed in the siege but did not show any signs of defeat. They obviously did not want to waste time. After waiting for less than 2 minutes, their patience was basically gone. They looked at each other, and the young man's figure flashed. In an instant, the flames were everywhere, and his figure had gone straight to Wang Yuetong, who was in the center of the battle. Fire-flaming realm. And he was an expert close to the peak of the fire-flaming realm. Still standing on the ice stair, the silver light in Li Tianlan's hand lit up, and a new ice stair appeared in front of the young man. In the blazing flames, the cold breath of the ice stair rushed to his face. Along with the cold breath, a silver spear smashed down from the sky. There was no silver spear light that was squeezed into a ball, and there was no attack made of ice. It was just a spear. It was the simplest and also the most violent shot. In an instant, the young man who rushed to Wang Yuetong could only hear the harsh whistling of the spear breaking through the sky. He could feel the extreme and pure power contained in this spear. If he met force with force, he would definitely be seriously injured in an instant. An expert in the ice-condensing realm could seriously injure an expert close to the peak of the fire-flaming realm with a spear. Such strength was extremely amazing. But he was also sure that even if he was seriously injured, the young man opposite him would not have an easy time. In a short time, just one move, and the young man had already fought in a way of mutual destruction. Such a violent fighting style was extremely stupid. The young man frowned slightly. He didn't think that today's action would fail, so he didn't think it was necessary to meet force with Li Tianlan. The long spear chopped down, and in the nick of time, he jumped back and stood with the young woman who rushed up. But the next moment, what made them laugh out of anger was that the young man with the target held a long spear. Not only did he not guard against their attacks, but he directly turned around, exposed his back, and rushed to Wang Yuetong, who was besieged. Where did the Wang family of Beihai get so many idiots who were so foolishly loyal? You're courting death. The young woman snorted and suddenly made a move. A dazzling stream of fire spread wildly as she raised her hand. The flame formed a line, and there was some vague thunder-shocking essence. There was no doubt that the young woman was the most terrible attacker on the scene. Her strength had already surpassed the fire-flaming realm and was infinitely close to the thunder-shocking realm. Li Tianlan didn't look back and continued to rush forward. He was now only dozens of meters away from Wang Yuetong. Under normal circumstances, as long as he could condense the ice stair there, he could cross it in one step. But now Wang Yuetong was besieged. Li Tianlan tried several times, but every time the ice stair just appeared, it was instantly crushed by the sword energy. In desperation, he could only sprint at full speed. The line of fire behind him was like lightning. Li Tianlan, who was charging with all his strength, swept the long spear in his hand. Two more ice stair appeared in front of him on both sides. His body flashed, and he moved to the left and right in a hair's breadth, avoiding the line of fire behind him, and continued to rush forward. The young woman sneered and jumped forward. How terrible was the explosive power of an expert who was about to enter the thunder-shocking realm. The two sides were not far from each other. Almost in the blink of an eye, she had already come behind Li Tianlan. Several inconspicuous but extremely hot lines of fire rushed out of her body and entangled Li Tianlan. She also directly attacked and punched Li Tianlan in the head. "Senior brother, watch out!" Wang Yuetong, who was besieged, suddenly screamed. The layers of exquisite small swords around her rose and fell, and then burst out in an instant. All the small swords were blown up. The horrible sword intent roared and roared. Even if more than a dozen experts in the ice-condensing realm besieging Wang Yuetong were elites, under such a terrible outbreak, 5 or 6 of them were completely crushed by the sword energy. Now is the time. Li Tianlan's eyes suddenly focused. At the moment when countless exquisite small swords were blown up, all the elites besieging Wang Yuetong instinctively defended. An ice stair had already formed in front of Wang Yuetong. Behind Li Tianlan were several lines of fire and the young woman's fist, which seemed white and tender but had the power close to the thunder-shocking realm. But at the moment when the lines of fire and the fist were about to touch Li Tianlan's body had suddenly disappeared and appeared on the ice stair beside Wang Yuetong. Everything flashed by in a flash. The young woman only looked up for a moment. Beside Wang Yuetong, on the ice stair, the human emperor in Li Tianlan's hand had begun to shrink to its original form. He held the metal cylinder in his hand and pulled it to both sides. In the clear sound of clanking, 2 slender double swords were directly unsheathed with a pure killing sword intent. A blazing fire lit up in the broken ice where countless small swords were blown up. In a trance, it instantly spread to the edges of the double swords. Li Tianlan held the double swords and suddenly rotated his body. Extremely blazing flames instantly soared into the sky, rushing tens of meters away, and continued to spread. Li Tianlan, who was surrounded by broken ice, was surrounded by blazing fire. His rotating figure holding the sword seemed to appear beside every elite besieging Wang Yuetong. Through the blurry ice, Li Tianlan at this moment was like a scorching sun. The raging fire burned the sky. Chapter 38. As the little princess of the Wang family of Beihai and a martial arts genius with the wind vein, Wang Yuetong was one of the real core figures among the younger generation of the family. Her importance in terms of identity and potential was self-evident. She was a person who must be protected under any circumstances. In Beihai province, the most stable territory of the Wang family of Beihai, Wang Tianzong would send experts to protect his baby daughter. At this time, Wang Yuetong came to Huiting where the situation was chaotic and undercurrents were surging. How could he let his baby daughter be in danger? In Huiting, it was the enchantress who was responsible for Wang Yuetong's safety. The enchantress was the leader of the camouflage and lurking course group in the Sky Academy. She was a senior member of the Sky Academy. Although her status was not as high as that of the principal and director, her strength at the peak of the thunder-shocking realm with room for improvement was enough for anyone in the Sky Academy to ignore her. As a core expert of the Wang family of Beihai, Wang Tianzong trusted the enchantress very much. No one in the Wang family of Beihai would be worried if Wang Yuetong was handed over to her. The enchantress really did her best. Early in the morning on the first day of the holiday, not long after Wang Yuetong and Li Tianlan went out, she followed them in a Hyundai. After knowing Wang Yuetong's destination, her protection range was ridiculously far. The distance between the two cars was nearly 1 kilometer. This distance was far beyond anyone's alert range. But with her speed, she could get to the scene in time to protect Wang Yuetong. In the eyes of the enchantress, this was the best protection distance. However, not long after the enchantress started on the road, she keenly noticed that someone was following the beige beetle. She paid attention to the license plate number. It was a Mercedes-Benz with a Huiting local license plate. The person, like her, was extremely confident in his skills and strength. He was at least 700 or 800 meters away from Wang Yuetong's beetle. The enchantress sped up for a short while, trying to see the stalker in the Mercedes-Benz. But the Mercedes-Benz window was covered with film. Vaguely, enchantress could barely see a silhouette and long, silky blonde hair. Someone outside Jianghu State? The enchantress's attention was completely focused at that time, and her mood became solemn. But after thinking about it, she didn't inform Wang Xiaoyao immediately. Wang Xiaoyao was now accompanying Taoist Xianxia, who was visiting Huiting. There was no room for error in this matter. It was said that Xianxia could manipulate some of the fate of Jianghu State. For enemies outside the country, such a figure was definitely one of the people they wanted to kill the most. Now, there was a suspected killer from a foreign force trying to kill the young core of the Wang family of Beihai. Needless to say, such an organization had a big plan. Who knew whether their ultimate target was Wang Yuetong or Xianxia? If he informed Wang Xiaoyao now, there might be some trouble. It was not necessary at all. The enchantress was extremely confident in her strength. She believed that as long as it was not an expert of the invincible realm who could kill Wang Yuetong in seconds, no matter who was under the invincible realm, the enchantress was sure to keep Wang Yuetong safe. She quietly followed Wang Yuetong a little closer, keeping a distance of about 500 meters. She was even more vigilant about the Mercedes-Benz behind her. The beige beetle drove into Garden Party, while the Hyundai driven by enchantress was parked on the other side of the road. When they were about to enter Lanshan National Park, the Mercedes-Benz that had been following them all the way finally disappeared. The enchantress sneered and did not look for them. Her task was to protect Wang Yuetong. After Wang Yuetong returned to the Sky Academy, it would not be too late to look for the tracker. Although it would take some time, this was Jianghu State. With the power of the Wang family of Beihai, as long as there was a trace, she was not afraid that she could not find the tracker. She parked the car on the side of the road not far from Garden Party and waited silently. Wang Yuetong had the positioning and alarm device of the Wang family of Beihai on her. When the device was running, the enchantress could know Wang Yuetong's movements at any time. The speed at which Wang Yuetong and Li Tianlan came out was beyond the enchantress's expectation. Sitting in the car, the enchantress had just made do with breakfast. Not long after, Wang Yuetong had left garden party, and the speed seemed to be not slow. The enchantress raised her eyebrows in surprise and started the car. There was a small forest in the middle of the road where she and Wang Yuetong were. It was a few hundred meters wide. If they went to the exit from here, the two cars would eventually meet. The enchantress controlled the speed and followed them at a moderate speed. The two cars gradually approached the intersection, and the forest in the middle became narrower and narrower. The enchantress, who had never let down her vigilance, finally breathed a sigh of relief. But before she could finish her breath, a loud bang suddenly sounded on the other side of the road 100 meters away. At the same time, the wristwatch on the enchantress's wrist showed a red, which was flashing rapidly. The enchantress, whose expression changed dramatically, kicked open the car door almost instinctively. A large amount of lightning flashed in the driver's seat, and her figure had already rushed into the forest. The distance of more than 100 meters was almost no distance when an expert at the peak of the thunder-shocking realm sprinted at full speed. A large amount of lightning filled the interior of the forest, like thunder piercing through the sky. The figure of the enchantress had almost disappeared. All along the way, there was glaring and dazzling lightning. A gunshot rang out abruptly from the interior of the forest. As soon as she heard the gunshot, the enchantress knew that it was a gunshot unique to the flowing light. The power of the flowing light was not very terrifying, but it was the fastest sniper rifle nowadays. It could almost double the shooting speed of an ordinary sniper rifle, which meant that many people, even if they were experts, might be shot in the head when they could not react in time. Such a sniper rifle was especially useful for dealing with elites in the ice-condensing realm on the battlefield. Most of the experts in the ice-condensing realm were still in the process of tempering their willpower. To block the bullets of the flowing light with ice, it required extremely focused willpower and fast reaction speed. However, the shooting speed of the flowing light was extremely terrifying. With such a ballistic speed, a considerable number of experts in the ice-condensing realm could not react in time. Therefore, the flowing light sniper rifle was also called the ice-condensing killer by the people in the dark world. The most ironic thing was that this sniper rifle, which was obviously used to deal with Wang Yuetong, was developed by the Wang family of Beihai. "You're courting death." The eyes of the enchantress, who was moving forward at high speed, suddenly turned cold, and she sped up again in an instant. The direction of the gunshot came from right in front of her, which would not make her run any longer. And it would not take much time to deal with this kind of person who could only hide in the dark and shoot from the back. It would only take a wave of her hand to kill 3 to 5 snipers. The enchantress had already raised her speed to the maximum. The distance of dozens of meters was almost covered by a leap. In the blink of an eye, she had already appeared in the place where the gunshot came from. But she did not make a move. Her sprinting body suddenly stopped where it was, and her pupils suddenly contracted to the extreme. She, who looked extremely wild in the process of sprinting, instantly became extremely quiet. But at this moment, the enchantress gave people the feeling that she was several times more dangerous than when she was sprinting. This place was almost close to the roadside. Standing here, the enchantress could even clearly see Wang Yuetong and Li Tianlan standing on the ice stair, as well as the dozen or so ice swords whistling in the air and the dozen or so attackers rushing out from the roadside. But she just took a hurried glance, and then focused all her attention on what was in front of her. "Who are you?" she asked slowly, taking a deep breath. Her whole state was adjusted to the peak in a short time, and her willpower was unprecedentedly focused. Right in front of her, a tall, plump, exotic woman was standing with her back to the enchantress. Her long blonde hair swayed slightly in the forest wind, and she held a flowing light sniper rifle in her hand. The woman did not seem to notice the arrival of the enchantress at all. She was watching the battlefield not far away with relish. On the battlefield, the ice swords were flying in the air. The sword intent was whistling in the air, and a ghastly sword intent like a tsunami, a huge wave, and a raging tide was rapidly taking shape. "It's really beautiful," the tall woman with her back to the enchantress exclaimed in English. No one knew whether she was praising Wang Yuetong or the unique skill of the Wang family of Beihai. The enchantress's expression grew calmer. She slightly narrowed her eyes and took a step forward. At this moment, she was completely in her peak state. Since the woman in front of her was unwilling to turn back, the enchantress did not bother to talk nonsense and directly planned to break through the encirclement by force. She was an assassin, and a famous assassin in Jianghu state. She was so famous that she was almost as famous as the top assassins in Sai City. Her desperate blow was completely sure that she could instantly kill anyone under the invincible realm. If the opponent could take this blow, there would be no enchantress in the world. But if she couldn't, the tall woman in front of her would die directly, and the enchantress would successfully break through the encirclement. She slightly narrowed her eyes. The dazzling electric light bloomed from her feet and spread all over her body. The powerful momentum firmly locked the opponent in front of her. The second step was taken. The enchantress was about to make a move. The tall woman who had been watching the battlefield in front of her seemed to finally feel the danger. She slowly turned around, holding the gun, and looked at the enchantress behind her with a surprised smile. "Don't you know me? It seems that you want to fight me with your life?" She spoke in Chinese, but her Mandarin was a little strange, with a trace of a difficult foreign accent. "It's you." The momentum that the enchantress had accumulated to the peak subconsciously stagnated. The next second, her killing intent grew colder. "You want to kill Yue Tong? You were distracted just now. I could have killed you." The blonde woman was still smiling. Her Chinese was not good, so she could only express herself as briefly as possible. "But I didn't do it." From a man's point of view, she was completely a real foreign woman. She was more than 1.8 meters tall, with a plump figure and a curvaceous face. Although her face was not lovely, it revealed a kind of strange temptation and glamour. Facing the horrible momentum of the enchantress, she still did not have the slightest killing intent, but there was a little playfulness in her light blue eyes. The enchantress became angrier and couldn't help but sneer. "You are a supermaster, but you want to kill 2 juniors. Horsewoman, do you have any shame? Why, are you going to fight with the Wang family of Beihai?" New Readers Group 670548567. Brothers who are interested are welcome to join the group to discuss 3 chapters today. The next chapter is at 4 in the afternoon. Chapter 39. For the enchantress, she did know the European woman in front of her. Not only her, but many people also knew her. In the dark world, the European woman in front of her was really famous. She was no less famous than the enchantress, or even more famous. One of the 12 supermasters of the Samsara Palace, codenamed Horsewoman. She was a real expert at the peak of the thunder-shocking realm. Among the 12 supermasters of the Samsara Palace, Horsewoman was famous for being good at defense and protection. Now she stood in front of her, which was equivalent to a collision between a spear and a shield. Breaking through Horsewoman's blockade and entanglement? Even the enchantress was not sure. "Why do we have to fight?" Horsewoman asked softly with a smile. The enchantress froze and instantly noticed something wrong. She frowned and said, "What do you mean?" Horsewoman's appearance was too strange. Under normal circumstances, even if the Samsara wanted to kill Wang Yuetong, it would not send a famous supermaster to do it in person. Sending some men of sacrifice to do it secretly was the best way. Even if they failed, they did not have to worry about being exposed. If the Samsara wanted to provoke the Wang family of Beihai, they would not choose Wang Yuetong as the starting point. Since they had already sent a supermaster, wouldn't it be more appropriate to directly target Wang Xianxia, the heir of the Wang family of Beihai? Her appearance was a little strange no matter how she looked at it. The enchantress frowned tightly. In her heart, she was willing to believe that this had nothing to do with the Samsara. Otherwise, if Horsewoman really wanted to kill Wang Yuetong, the Wang family of Beihai would definitely fight back against the Samsara immediately, regardless of the result today. This was tantamount to a huge conflict in the dark world. The whole dark world would be in turmoil. In the dark world, the Samsara Palace was a very strange organization. No one could even tell when they were founded. It was about 10 years ago that the 12 supermasters began to go their own way with great fanfare. But earlier, there were still traces of the Samsara Palace's activities. About 5 or 6 years ago, the 12 supermasters of the Samsara Palace completely gathered together, and the Samsara Palace leaped to become the top force in the dark world. The mysterious palace master of the Samsara Palace, who had only fought once a few years ago, was definitely an expert in the invincible realm. Otherwise, he would not have been able to suppress so many supermasters at the peak of the thunder-shocking realm. At present, among all the superpowers in the dark world, the Samsara Palace had the most experts at the peak of the thunder-shocking realm. But except for a few exposed supermasters, people knew nothing about the other situation of the Samsara. If the Wang family of Beihai started a war with such a mysterious force, it would have too little information. At that time there would be endless variables. For the Wang family of Beihai, it would not be a good thing whether it won or lost. Nothing much. Horsewoman shook her head and said, "You've been guarding against me since I showed up today. You didn't even notice the person who was following Wang Yuetong. I'm helpless. Why are you guarding against me? If you were following Yuetong, you wouldn't have shown up here. Why should I guard against you?" The enchantress sneered, but compared to her previous murderous look, her attitude was much gentler. In a hurry, she glanced at Wang Yuetong on the battlefield. The sword torrent had taken shape. Wang Yuetong should be able to cope with it for a while. The enchantress was slightly relieved and then focused on Horsewoman. To some extent, the Wang family of Beihai and the Samsara Palace had some connections. If Horsewoman hadn't come to kill Wang Yuetong today, the two might have cooperated. "Then why did you follow Wang Yuetong?" Horsewoman's voice was soft, which was very inconsistent with her bold and gorgeous appearance. But the enchantress would not be deceived by these illusions. She said coldly, "I wasn't following her. I was protecting her. I'm from the Wang family of Beihai. Is it wrong to protect our little princess?" "I was protecting her too." Horsewoman threw away the gun in her hand and said calmly. She turned around again, as if she was not afraid of the enchantress's sneak attack at all. She looked at the battlefield. Unlike the enchantress was looking at Wang Yuetong, while her eyes were fixed on Li Tianlan. The enchantress was slightly stunned and then understood. "You were protecting Li Tianlan." She looked at the gun that Horsewoman had left on the ground and found that there was a piece of black ash next to the sniper rifle. Beside the sniper rifle, there was a piece of black ash. If the shape was put together, it could barely be seen that it was a human shape. There was no doubt that it was the sniper who had just fired. The suspicion in the enchantress's heart was slightly reduced. She took a deep breath and said softly, "Li Tianlan has something to do with your samsara. He really hides his strength." "This is the boss's order," Horsewoman said calmly. "Qin Wei Bai? What's the relationship between Li Tianlan and Qin Wei Bai?" The enchantress asked subconsciously. Whether in the Samsara Palace or in the Wang family of Beihai, Qin Wei Bai was a very special and sensitive person. The only time that the mysterious palace master of the Samsara Palace took action in recent years was when she killed an expert at the peak of the thunder-shocking realm in England. She also saved a delicate and weak Jianghu state woman who didn't know martial arts from the demoness who dominated Europe. At that time, the woman was still a young girl. Later, the mysterious palace master recognized the young girl as his younger sister. The young girl's status in the Samsara Palace soared, and the 12 supermasters of the Samsara Palace were formally formed. In the current Samsara Palace, many aspects of intelligence showed that the young girl still didn't know martial arts, but she had become a figure in the Samsara Palace second only to the palace master. And that young girl back then was the current Qin Wei Bai. From the way Horsewoman called her boss, it was enough to show the status between the supermasters of the Samsara Palace and Qin Wei Bai. Many big shots in the dark world guessed that Qin Wei Bai might be the military counselor of the 12 supermasters of the Samsara Palace. A military counselor didn't need to be proficient in martial arts. He just needed to be able to give advice. Some people even said that Qin Wei Bai ranked first among the 12 supermasters of the Samsara Palace, and her mystery was second only to the palace master of the Samsara Palace. Some people also guessed that the palace master of the Samsara Palace coveted Qin Wei Bai's beauty, so she gave her such great power. However, this kind of saying was absolutely forbidden in the Wang family of Beihai. It was all because of Wang Xiaoyao. Wang Xiaoyao's obsession with Qin Wei Bai had almost reached the point of losing his mind. For several years, no matter how cold Qin Wei Bai's words were, he never lost his patience and persisted in pursuing her. Wang Xiaoyao did not hesitate to solve some things that Qin Wei Bai or the Samsara Palace couldn't intervene in Jianghu state. He did not hesitate to kill some flies around her. For this, he even caused a lot of trouble. Wang Tianzong tried to persuade him, but it was useless. Other people in the Wang family of Beihai also tried to persuade him, but it was useless. The enchantress lived in Huading all year round, so she knew about the progress of Wang Xiaoyao's pursuit of Qin Wei Bai in recent years. It was said that the two had lunched together in the past 4 years, and they talked about business. Even so, Wang Xiaoyao was still infatuated with her. Unfortunately, all his sincerity was thrown into the garbage heap by Qin Wei Bai. Now hearing Horsewoman say that Qin Wei Bai actually asked her to secretly protect Li Tianlan, The enchantress had mixed feelings. She felt that Wang Xiaoyao's efforts were not worth it. Horsewoman was the supermaster of the Samsara Palace. Even if Qin Weibai's status was higher than hers, she could protect Qin Weibai herself. Now that she had to protect Li Tianlan, Horsewoman might not feel very comfortable. From this, it could be seen how important Li Tianlan was to Qin Weibai. The enchantress had a headache, but she also knew that she would never get any answer from the question she asked Horsewoman. She just said indifferently, "Since our goals are basically the same, why haven't you made a move yet?" As she spoke, she was about to step out and rush to the battlefield. Horsewoman suddenly stretched out her hand, and a bright electric light kept jumping in her palm. The electric light was small, but as soon as it appeared, even the nearby air was extremely distorted. The electric light stopped in front of the enchantress. Horsewoman was expressionless. "You can't go." "What do you mean?" The enchantress's eyes suddenly became cold. "Don't you think it's better to let Li Tianlan save the damsel in distress? I know the unique skills of the Wang family of Beihai. Your unique skills are almost flawless, but they are full of shortcomings. For hundreds of years you have only pursued one thing, and that is the ultimate explosive force. In the shortest time, you have to completely and unreservedly vent all your combat effectiveness. This is the martial arts purpose of the Wang family of Beihai. Wang Yuetong's move is called Sword Frenzy. But how long can she hold on in the face of the siege of more than a dozen elites? When her sword momentum falls, she will be in danger. Isn't it better for us to see Li Tianlan's performance together?" The knight chuckled and stated his purpose with utmost sincerity. Li Tianlan is still in the qi-controlling realm. Not to mention that the dozen elites besieging Yuetong are close to or have reached the peak of the ice-condensing realm. Even the young man and woman are very likely to be in the fire-flaming realm. "You want Li Tianlan to save the damsel in distress?" The enchantress questioned coldly. "In any case, I can keep them alive. There is no harm in trying." Horsewoman smiled. The corner of the enchantress's mouth twitched. Horsewoman was best at defense and protection. With her ability, she could indeed keep Wang Yuetong and Li Tianlan alive. But the enchantress didn't think it was necessary for Li Tianlan to save the damsel in distress. There was something wrong between Wang Yuetong and Li Tianlan. At the end of the maneuver, many people had seen it. If Li Tianlan really succeeded in saving the damsel in distress, what would Wang Yuetong's maiden mind be like? If the two were involved, plus Qin Weibai and Wang Xiaoyao, it would be too messy. The enchantress couldn't let that happen. Facing the jumping lightning, the enchantress took a step forward and said calmly, "Get out of the way. You can't get through," Horsewoman said in an old-fashioned tone, with no smile on her beautiful face. "You and I have our own tasks. Don't play with fire." "It doesn't matter." "Horsewoman, do you have to fight to the death?" The enchantress's eyes grew sharper. Her eyes could be said to be the sexiest and most charming part of her, but at this moment, there was a kind of desperate determination. Horsewoman looked at her seriously and suddenly laughed. "You can attack me, but you can't fight to the death." "Not only me, but military counselor is also nearby." The enchantress's face changed. Military counselor, one of the 12 supermasters of Samsara. Qin Weibai was also a mysterious character. Otherwise, no one would have regarded Qin Weibai as a military counselor. If the military counselor was really here at this time, it meant that the rumor about Qin Weibai was completely nonsense. Military counselor could appear on this battlefield. How could he not know martial arts? Perhaps his real combat capability was no less than Horsewoman's. And 2 supermasters of Samsara protected Li Tianlan together. How willful would Qin Weibai be? There was also Flaming Fire who followed Qin Weibai. After careful calculation, 3 of the 12 supermasters of Samsara appeared in Jianghu state. Qin Weibai was attentive to Li Tianlan, and the master of Samsara Palace seemed to be extremely attentive to his baby sister. "Are you threatening me?" The enchantress took a deep breath, and her plump chest rose and fell slightly. She sneered and said, "Don't forget, this is Jianghu state. What is your Samsara in Jianghu state? Do you really think your palace master is invincible? Today, whether it's me or Yuetong, if something happens, do you think your palace master can really protect himself under the human emperor?" Horsewoman's smile slowly faded, and her eyes became cold. She glanced at the enchantress and said coldly, "If our palace master goes east to Jianghu state, He may be able to borrow a murderous weapon. I know you have been secretly colluding with the academics in recent years, but Sai City is not a dog of the academics. Situ Tsongyue can control the murderous weapon Setting Sun in Jianghu State, but Setting Sun is related to the fate of the country. Do you think she will lend Setting Sun to your palace master? You're daydreaming. The enchantress's tone became more and more gloomy. Horsewoman stopped talking and just watched the battle closely. On the battlefield, Wang Yuetong's sharp scream suddenly sounded. Senior brother, watch out. The enchantress's expression changed dramatically, and the lightning rose again. Wang Yuetong, who was besieged by many people, detonated her sword momentum before it reached its peak. The sword energy was like a tide. The whole battlefield suddenly became turbulent. But once the turbulent waves passed, Wang Yuetong was absolutely in danger. On the other side of the battlefield, Li Tianlan was approaching. Behind him, the figure of the young woman was less than 2 meters away from him. It was a matter of life and death. Horsewoman and the enchantress rushed forward almost at the same time, and then stopped at the same time, looking shocked. In their sight, Li Tianlan, who was about to suffer a fatal attack, suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already beside Wang Yuetong. In an instant, the fire rose to the sky, and the sword light flew. The surging sword intent broke out, and the battlefield mixed with broken ice was blurred. But in the blurred scene, there was a sudden storm and the rising sun. No one could see Li Tianlan's sword, but Horsewoman and the enchantress clearly felt an extremely crazy and vast sword intent spinning wildly in the battlefield. The sword light rushed to the sky, almost tearing the sky apart. At this moment, neither Horsewoman nor the enchantress cared about the fact that Li Tianlan had re-entered the fire-flaming realm. They were only attracted by the unique skill that Li Tianlan seemed to have hidden intentionally or unintentionally. Such a powerful unique skill really had a kind of invincible demeanor. It was simply, such a sword move can be called the extreme of the sword. The enchantress stopped and said in a low voice after 2 seconds of silence. Then she felt that the words were a little exaggerated, so she shook her head and said, "No, it's the extreme of the fire-flaming realm." Horsewoman just silently looked at the flamboyant fire that burned the sky like the sun, and praised for the second time, "It's really beautiful." Chapter 40. No one could see Li Tianlan's sword move clearly. No one could describe it because no one could see it clearly. The sharp sword light whistled wildly. At this moment, Li Tianlan was surrounded by fire. The extremely sharp and strong sword intent was ancient and distant, as if it had connected heaven and earth, making it irresistible. "No!" The young woman who failed to kill raised her head and looked at the fire rising in the battlefield. Her face changed dramatically, and there was even a hint of fear in her voice. "No!" In the center of the fire, Li Tianlan's expression was cold, but his pupils were demonic blood red. 2 slender long swords turned with his body, and there were countless shadows on the battlefield in an instant. The raging fire shrank to the limit. In just a second, it expanded to the limit again. The sound of the expanding fire rang in everyone's ears. Li Tianlan and Wang Yuetong's figures had almost completely disappeared, leaving only a huge fireball, roaring and exploding. Large waves of fire spread wildly with Li Tianlan as the center. More than a dozen ice-condensing realm elites who had besieged Wang Yuetong disappeared in the fire before they could even scream. Not to mention corpses, not even ashes were left. What a domineering sword move! Near the battlefield, Horsewoman and Enchantress, who were ready to take action at any time, said in unison. They had tried their best to overestimate the power of this sword move, but they still couldn't believe it when they saw it with their own eyes. Although the person who made the move was still in the fire-flaming realm, in terms of power, this sword move might have completely exceeded the scope of the fire-flaming realm, with a taste of thunder. The extreme of the fire-flaming realm. Horsewoman narrowed her eyes and said softly, "Worthy of the name." Enchantress's face changed, and she couldn't speak for a while. All the unique skills of the Wang family of Beihai were about extreme explosive power, which was well known in the dark world. Their patriarch, Wang Tianzong, was the #1 expert in Jianghu State. Even without the human emperor, he deserved to be #1. There were few people in the world who could withstand his instant explosive power. But now Li Tianlan's sword move made Enchantress's scalp tingle. This sword move was also pursuing extreme explosive power. Although it was not the extreme way of the Wang family of Beihai, in terms of power, It was not much worse than the unique skills of the Wang family of Beihai. Such a figure was now involved with a behemoth like the Samsara Palace. If they became enemies in the future, they would definitely be strong enemies of the Wang family of Beihai. The enchantress hesitated for a moment before deciding not to move. Li Tianlan's sword strike could be said to be peerlessly powerful. With her eyes, she could naturally see that he was still forcibly improving his realm. This meant that Li Tianlan had at least reached the fire-flaming realm before. But according to the data, Li Tianlan was only 19 years old now. A young man with wind and thunder veins who had reached the fire-flaming realm before the age of 19 was as talented as Wang Xianxia of the Wang family of Beihai. Li Tianlan was a freshman who could kill Lu Xiuwei in the ice-condensing realm. Now that he was forced to the fire-flaming realm, even if she showed up now, it would be meaningless. It was better to hide in the dark and see what other trump cards Li Tianlan had. The frost melted. The storm stilled. The flames dispersed. Li Tianlan appeared in the field again with two swords in his hands. Wang Yuetong was not hurt except that her face was pale. Obviously, although Li Tianlan's sword strike was powerful, he controlled it very well and did not affect her at all. Less than 10 meters in front of them were two young men and women in the fire-flaming realm. At this moment, both of them were dumbfounded. They looked at the empty scene with incredulity on their faces. Gone, everything was gone. After that sword strike, more than a dozen elites who had just besieged Wang Yuetong seemed to have never existed, and no trace of them could be found. Where are they? The young woman looked at the scene in front of her and subconsciously murmured to herself. The road to hell is long. I think they are still waiting for you. They can't be far away. Li Tianlan held his sword, and his whole body exuded a kind of extremely crazy coldness and killing intent. At this time, he was different from the calmness in the Sky Academy. Now, there was only one feeling that Li Tianlan gave people. Dangerous. Absolutely dangerous. How dare you kill them? The young woman suddenly raised her head and looked at Li Tianlan with hatred in her eyes. There was a trace of ruthlessness in her angry expression. Today's action squadron was the painstaking effort of the couple for many years. 18 experts at the peak of the ice-condensing realm or close to the peak of the ice-condensing realm, plus the couple, made up a squadron. She was number 1, and the young man was number 2. The 18 elites could be said to be their most precious wealth, and also the capital for them to gain a foothold in the organization. But now, all the capital was gone, and they were killed by a sword strike. Number 1's heart seemed to be torn apart, and the pain and despair even made her unable to breathe for a moment. Damn you! She stared at Li Tianlan in front of her and gritted her teeth. Blood flowed down the corner of her mouth, and her expression was distorted. Her charming face was as ferocious as a ghost at this time. The young man, number 2, stood beside number 1 with a crazy look in his eyes. He opened his mouth a few times, and his voice was hoarse. He turned out to be a mute. A mute? Li Tianlan's heart skipped a beat, and he glanced at the pale Wang Yuetong. To trace the origin of these people, this mute might be an obvious feature. Do we need to keep him alive? I don't have much time. Li Tianlan frowned and suddenly asked in a low voice. Wang Yuetong found that as Li Tianlan spoke, the red blood was flowing down the corner of his mouth, and his face seemed to become a little twisted. Wang Yuetong suddenly understood what was going on, and she also knew that Li Tianlan's peak state was in the fire-flaming realm. It was scary to hear that a man who was less than 19 years old in the fire-flaming realm and possessed the wind and thunder veins. But for some reason, Li Tianlan's strength had fallen to the bottom. Now it was a matter of life and death, and he could force himself to return to his peak state. But the pain of bearing the power of the fire-flaming realm with the strength of the chi-controlling realm was like thousands of arrows piercing his heart every minute and second, and it was worse than death. Even if Li Tianlan was strong-willed, how long could he stay in the fire-flaming realm? This was different from when he was in the ice-condensing realm. In his current state, 3 to 5 minutes was his limit. No, we can't get anything out of him. Wang Yuetong said quickly, and then she asked, Senior brother, how are you? Li Tianlan smiled, shook his head slightly, and turned around directly. His eyes suddenly became demonic and dead. Number 1 and number 2 in front of him were the attackers. They were angry because their men were killed, and because Li Tianlan directly wiped out the foundation of their future foothold in the organization. But Li Tianlan had more reason to be angry. The price of forcibly upgrading to the fire-flaming realm was unimaginable. The injury and pain were secondary. In this way, the squeeze on his future potential was the most fatal. The fire-flaming realm was a very special realm for him. This forcible upgrade could only last a few minutes, but it would take at least one more year when he really stepped into the fire-flaming realm and broke through to the thunder-shocking realm in the future, and it might not necessarily achieve the desired effect. 1 year. This price was almost unbearable for him. Li Tianlan closed his eyes and felt the pain in his body. The corner of his mouth twitched, revealing an extremely twisted smile. The temperature in front of him rose instantly. Number 1 and Number 2 attacked at the same time, trying their best. Their elites were all lost. Only by completing the task could they continue to survive in the organization, and even have a chance to regain their foothold. If they failed the task and suffered such a heavy loss, even if they went back, they would probably live a life worse than death. So they had to kill Wang Yuetong and Li Tianlan. Li Tianlan paid such a price to enter the fire-flaming realm. If he didn't offer 2 decent heads to the sword, he could die of grievance, which would affect his state of mind and will. For him, the 2 in front of him also had to die. The fire rose. Number 1 and Number 2 moved at the same time, and the fire around them completely merged. Suddenly, there was a trace of electric light floating in the fire. Watch out! Wang Yuetong's pupils contracted instantly. Their martial arts obviously had a lot in common, which was almost the same as Lu Dongchao and Lu Dongyu in the Sky Academy. When they joined forces, their power was doubled. In this state, Number 1 and Number 2 were almost one person, and their combat strength was almost equal to that of an expert who had just entered the thunder-shocking realm. The electric light kept floating in the fire, and Li Tianlan and Wang Yuetong were surrounded by burning flames. At this point, Li Tianlan had no choice but to move forward. As long as he retreated a little, the sword light floating in the fire would probably fall on him. At that time, both he and Wang Yuetong would be burnt to a crisp in an instant. Number 1's expression had calmed down. She and Number 2 moved at the same time, less than 10 meters away. They walked very slowly, but with every step they took, the electric light in the fire became more dazzling. Li Tianlan's eyes had narrowed into a line. In the blazing fire, he suddenly said in a low voice, "Help me." Wang Yuetong was slightly stunned. Thinking of the scene in the maze of the entrance maneuver, when facing Lu Xiaowei, he refused to use his unique skills. Wang Yuetong's heart skipped a beat and she raised her hand again. Countless intricate ice swords rose from her body and exploded in an instant. The air that was burning with flames suddenly had a hint of coldness. Ice and fire blended together. Under the refraction of the sun, everything became blurred again. Li Tianlan suddenly closed the slender swords in his hands. The moment the 2 swords came together, a crisp sound was heard as the 2 swords combined into one. It was a broadsword with an extremely strange shape and even 2 sword tips. Li Tianlan held the hilt with both hands and raised the sword to his eyebrows. In an instant, the sword energy was like a sea, layer upon layer, surging as if it was endless. The sword had not been drawn, but the sword energy was everywhere. The fire on Number 1 and Number 2 was still flowing, burning around Li Tianlan and Wang Yuetong. But as Li Tianlan raised the sword, all the fire shook violently, as if it was going to be extinguished. Even the electric light seemed to shake violently. Li Tianlan looked calm, but his scarlet pupils became more and more demonic, like dripping blood. In the Li family's martial arts and the unique skills he had practiced, the sword just now had a famous name, but now he didn't know how many people still remembered it. It was called the 8th blade. The 8th blade burned the sky. And now this sword was the 9th blade. The 9th blade of dusk. The sword edge in Li Tianlan's hand vibrated, and the fire burning around him suddenly swayed more and more violently, as if it would be extinguished at any time. Number 1 and Number 2's expressions changed. But before they took the initiative to attack, Li Tianlan had directly drawn his sword. His body didn't seem to move, but he directly appeared in front of the 2, raised the long sword high, and directly chopped down. All the fire went out in an instant. Between Number 1 and Number 2, there was only a faint but extremely terrifying electric light. The long sword chopped down from above. At first, there was silence. A horrible whistling sound suddenly broke out in the process of the sword edge downward. Everywhere was moving. With Li Tianlan as the center, the air within dozens of meters around him was shaking and twisting violently. The fire rose from dozens of meters in all directions, all gathered toward Li Tianlan, and then disappeared, but the surrounding temperature was rising sharply. Chapter 41. An extreme sense of danger shrouded her heart. Number 1 could no longer hold it in and screamed. The electric light that was floating around her and Number 2 suddenly leaped up and streaked across the dim environment before them, colliding with a long sword that was falling down from the sky. The dim environment in front of them suddenly dissipated. Intense flames suddenly burst out, forming a continuous stretch, all of them surging towards Number 1 and Number 2 in front of them. Number 1 and Number 2 screamed to defend themselves. For a moment, the fire was endless. The flames of the two sides were entangled, and everything around them was pure heat. Only a slender pair of swords surrounded by lightning rushed to the sky, flying higher and higher. Seeing this scene clearly, Number 1's eyes were filled with despair. Li Tianlan's combat strength was far beyond her imagination. But what made it more difficult for her to understand was the weapon in Li Tianlan's hand. She and Number 2's full force attack turned into lightning, which was almost a fatal blow. As long as the lightning could touch Li Tianlan or the long sword in his hand, the power of the lightning could kill Li Tianlan in an instant. Of course, she could also see that Li Tianlan was forcibly raising his realm. But when his realm was raised to the fire-flaming realm, his physical strength could not keep up. Under the full force attack of her and Number 2, Li Tianlan had no reason to survive. But the moment when the lightning was about to touch the long sword in Li Tianlan's hand, the long sword in Li Tianlan's hand instantly disintegrated and once again turned into two slender swords. One was held tightly in his hand. As for the other one, it flew high up into the sky with the help of the lightning. Li Tianlan, who was not attacked by Number 1 and Number 2 at all, held the long sword in his hand and swept it across the battlefield full of fire. The 10th blade. Boundless. All the flames were extinguished by the sword, and only a vast sword chi swept towards Number 1 and Number 2's bodies along with the sword's edge. The sword energy was majestic, like raging fire, like thunder, like the thick earth of the sky, like all the phenomena in the world. The 10th blade was boundless. In the martial arts that Li Tianlan cultivated, it was the most destructive sword in the fire-flaming realm. In a desperate battle, its power surpassed that of the 8th blade of sky burning and the 9th blade of eventide. Number 1 screamed again. Under this sword, all her feelings seemed to have disappeared, and the only thing she could feel was death. At the moment of life and death, she suddenly turned around and rushed directly to her husband, Number 2. The distance between the two of them was extremely close. With just a turn, Number 1 was already in Number 2's arms. A thick ice wall appeared behind her, and within the ice wall, raging flames raged. The look of despair on Number 1's face was still the same, but the look in her eyes had softened. The deadly flash of the sword behind her seemed to have disappeared from her mind. She just looked at Number 2's face, as if she wanted to carve this face she had known for so many years into her soul. The long sword and the sword chi swept across. The ice wall instantly shattered, and the flames disappeared. The sharp edge of the sword flashed across Number 1's waist. Blood sprayed everywhere. Number 2 felt the weight in his arms lighten. Looking at his wife's lifeless eyes, he opened his mouth wide. But as a mute, before he could scream, Li Tianlan's figure flashed and appeared directly behind him. Without any hesitation, he raised his sword and pierced it into Number 2's back. What Number 1 did at the last moment was sentimental, but it was clearly meaningless. The long sword pierced in and then pulled out. Li Tianlan looked at Number 2, who had fallen to the ground with his wife's upper body in his arms. His face was full of chilling indifference. Resolute, decisive, ruthless, mysterious, and powerful. Enchantress, who saw all this, felt her scalp go numb. In this state, Li Tianlan might not be a threat to her now, but everything he had shown had already made Enchantress's hair stand on end. The boss really didn't choose the wrong person. Horsewoman was silent for a while. She suddenly smiled, glanced at Wang Yuetong, and continued, "It seems that the little princess of the Wang family of Beihai didn't choose the wrong person either." Enchantress's expression changed. Looking at Wang Yuetong, whose eyes were blank and blurred, she sighed in her heart, and her face became extremely ugly. The long sword that had been flying in the air finally fell back. Along with the long sword, Li Tianlan's extremely strong aura also fell. Almost in the blink of an eye, his strength fell from the fire-flaming realm to the chi-controlling realm. His face was pale. With the help of Wang Yuetong, he picked up the long sword that had fallen to the ground. After gathering the human emperor, he put it back into his sleeve. After doing all this, Li Tianlan finally couldn't hold it anymore. He directly sat on the ground, panting violently. As he panted, a large mouthful of blood gushed out of his mouth, and he couldn't stop it at all. Senior brother. Wang Yuetong's frightened voice sounded with a sobbing tone. She held Li Tianlan tightly in her arms and covered Li Tianlan's mouth with one hand. Big drops of tears fell from her eyes, and her body trembled more violently than Li Tianlan's. Senior brother, don't scare me. Li Tianlan looked at Wang Yuetong's tender white palm that was stained with his blood. He closed his mouth tightly and swallowed the blood back, one mouthful at a time. He shook his head at Wang Yuetong, his face calm, but he couldn't speak. Wang Yuetong's little face was covered with tears. Until now, she seemed to wake up from a dream. She quickly tore off a few buttons on her clothes, crushed them, and poured several kinds of powder from the buttons. Senior brother, eat it. It's good for your injury. Li Tianlan glanced at her, opened his mouth, and let Wang Yuetong pour the powder into his mouth. Then he swallowed it with blood. Wang Yuetong held Li Tianlan in her arms and continued to cry, like a little tabby cat that had just been abandoned by its owner. That's the blessing potion of our Wang family of Beihai. At worst, it can suppress Li Tianlan's injury. In the woods, the enchantress looked at Horsewoman, who was obviously hesitant, and said in a calm tone. Horsewoman's face visibly relaxed when she heard that. Without hesitation, she said flatly, "Goodbye." It was not that she couldn't appear in front of Li Tianlan, but that this place was very close to the garden party. Wang Xiaoyao and other experts of the Wang family of Beihai were probably coming soon. Horsewoman's action of stopping the enchantress from helping Li Tianlan was obviously not pleasing to the Wang family of Beihai. If she didn't leave at this time, with Wang Xiaoyao's domineering character, it was inevitable that there would be a conflict after he learned the whole story. When Horsewoman's figure completely disappeared, the enchantress sighed and slowly walked out of the woods. Wang Yuetong, who was holding Li Tianlan and sobbing, was stunned when she saw the enchantress. Then she wiped her tears and turned her head to the side with a straight face. What's wrong? Are you angry with Sixth Sister? The enchantress had mixed feelings, but she still came to Wang Yuetong with a smiling face. Wang Yuetong shook her head and said nothing. The enchantress felt bitter inside. She glanced at Li Tianlan, whose face was gradually calming down, and said softly, Tianlan, are you feeling better? It's not a big deal. Li Tianlan looked calm. As he opened his mouth, blood spilled from the corner of his mouth. Thank you for your concern, teacher. Didn't I say to call me Sixth Sister from now on? The enchantress raised her eyebrows slightly and looked at Li Tianlan, who still looked calm. Her eyes flickered and she suddenly said playfully, Tianlan, with your strength if you want to leave, I'm afraid those people just now can't stop you, and you don't have to pay such a big price to save Yuetong. Tell me, why do you risk your life for our little princess? Do you like her? Sixth Sister. Wang Yuetong's face, which was about to cry, turned red and subconsciously held Li Tianlan in her arms. Li Tianlan was stunned and sat up from Wang Yuetong's arms. He said flatly, This is what I owe Wang Yuetong. The enchantress and Wang Yuetong were stunned at the same time. Is it just because of this? If so, no matter how much you owe her before, you have paid it back today. What will you do in the future? The enchantress asked again without batting an eyelid. In the future? Li Tianlan glanced at the enchantress. The enchantress's charming eyes were so deep that people couldn't see what she was thinking. What future? Li Tianlan laughed at himself. He struggled to stand up, looked at the pale and nervous Wang Yuetong, and said softly, From now on, you and I don't owe each other anything. He nodded and turned to leave directly. Wang Yuetong sat where she was, as if she had been struck by lightning. It was not until Li Tianlan walked nearly 10 meters away that she said in a trembling voice, What do you mean? Li Tianlan didn't answer, nor did he look back. Since the Li family and the Wang family of Beihai had different paths, it was the best choice for him and Wang Yuetong to be strangers in the future. He walked silently and staggered a little, but he kept moving forward. In Wang Yuetong's eyes, he was getting farther and farther away. Looking at his back, Wang Yuetong could no longer hold back her tears, which had already been stopped, and they gushed out. She suddenly stood up, looked at Li Tianlan, and was about to chase after him, but was pulled by the enchantress, whose eyes were a little cold. Wang Yuetong struggled with all her strength, but she couldn't break free. She cried more and more sadly. Looking at Li Tianlan's figure getting farther and farther away, she cried again, What do you mean? Li Tianlan, tell me, answer me. Chapter 42. Even though he took the healing medicine of the Wang family of Beihai immediately after the war and managed to suppress his injury, it did not mean that his internal injury did not exist. Before school started, he risked his life with Qin Ku. In the entrance maneuver, he risked his life with Lu Xiuwei. Today, he risked his life with 2 fire-flaming realm experts who came out of nowhere for Wang Yuetong. The 3 fights were against different enemies. But for Li Tianlan, they were all battles that he needed to go all out. As a result, his injuries piled up again and again. Yesterday's healing potion and life-prolonging potion might have been in vain. After today's battle, his injuries were not light but serious. Even though he had forcibly entered the fire-flaming realm for only a few minutes, the injuries left on him would take him months or even longer to recover. In the Sky Academy with a fierce competitive atmosphere, Li Tianlan's realm was not high. Now that he was injured, it was obvious how difficult the situation would be during this period of time. But Li Tianlan did not regret it. As he said to the enchantress, everything he did today was because he owed Wang Yuetong a favor. The little princess of the Wang family of Beihai really had no bad intentions towards him. She cooperated with him to kill Lu Dongchao and exchanged a bottle of healing medicine for him with the credits she got from the first place in the maneuver, along with the longevity medicine produced by the Wang family of Beihai. These were all favors. In addition, she met Xianxia, a demi-immortal, today. It could be seen that Wang Yuetong was indeed helping him. From Wang Yuetong's standpoint, she might hope that he could join the Wang family of Beihai and make the Wang family of Beihai stronger after he entered the invincible realm. But it could not be said that Wang Yuetong's approach was wrong. With her identity, it was natural for her to have such an idea. And joining the Wang family of Beihai, for most people, was tantamount to a path to heaven. It was not a bad thing at all. What's more, some of them might become the son-in-law of the Wang family of Beihai, which was like a pie falling from the sky. But such a path was not suitable for Li Tianlan. He did not hate the Wang family of Beihai for standing by when the Li family was destroyed many years ago. But in the future, under his leadership, even if the Li family would not treat the Wang family of Beihai as an enemy, it would never advance or retreat with them again. And today, the Wang family of Beihai no longer needed a Li family that advanced or retreated with them. In this case, what could he get in the end if he was entangled with Wang Yuetong? He silently accepted Wang Yuetong's help. When his identity was exposed, not only would he be looked down upon by the Wang family of Beihai, even Wang Yuetong would have a feeling of being used and cheated. If they couldn't be friends, they might even become enemies with personal grievances. These were not what Li Tianlan wanted. He was a young man who had just come out of the deep mountains and forests. He had some ability and was not stupid, but he had no connections and experience. What he feared most was to get entangled with these seemingly aloof big forces. There were too many human relationship traps, and after a long time, they could entangle him to death. Wang Yuetong had no bad intentions, but who could tell what the Wang family of Beihai was up to? There was a clear distinction. It was better to draw a clear line between them. Now that he had saved Wang Yuetong once, they were even. He could get away as soon as possible, which was exactly what Li Tianlan wanted. Leaving the enchantress and Wang Yuetong behind, Li Tianlan went down the mountain alone in silence. His injury was temporarily suppressed, but his body became a little weak with the exhaustion of strength. He was already panting after walking less than a kilometer. Fortunately, this part of the road was downhill, which saved him a lot of effort. While moving forward, Li Tianlan took out his mobile phone and dialed Yu Qingyan's number again. While waiting for the phone to be connected, he suddenly remembered Xianxuanzi's words. Xianxuanzi said that he had just passed the life and death tribulation, and the next thing was the sea and the sky. Well, the sea and the sky. Li Tianlan felt his injury, laughed at himself and muttered to himself, "The sea and the sky, my ass." Whose ass? On the other end of the phone, it was still Yu Donglai who answered the phone. He heard the last few words of Li Tianlan and said subconsciously, "Nothing." Li Tianlan smiled bitterly, sat down on the side of the road, and said, "Senior Yu, I'm a little injured. Can you ask Qingyan to pick me up? I'm afraid I can't get a taxi in my current condition." "What's going on?" Yu Donglai's tone suddenly became serious. Before Li Tianlan finished, he said directly, "Where are you?" "Qingyan is still cooking. I'll pick you up myself." Is the injury serious? Is Wang Yuetong all right? Whether it was Li Tianlan, who was mediocre in his eyes but reckless, or Li Tianlan, who had infinite potential and amazing combat capability, in Yu Donglai's heart, there was one thing that had never changed. That was, he had never regarded Li Tianlan as an outsider. Li Tianlan had proved his own potential. In Yu Donglai's eyes, his future was almost as important as that of his granddaughter Yu Qingyan. On his future road, Yu Donglai was willing to do his best to escort him, even at the cost of his own life. So when he heard that Li Tianlan was injured, the old man suddenly couldn't sit still. I'm fine, Wang Yuetong is also fine, but there's no car. Li Tianlan said his location with a bitter smile. Yu Donglai didn't talk nonsense with him at all. After hanging up the phone, he directly drove away. In Li Tianlan's impression, Lanshan National Park was at least dozens of kilometers away from Yu's private restaurant. Considering the traffic situation in Huiting at this time, he thought it would take a long time. But in fact, in less than 40 minutes, a black Audi stopped beside him. The window rolled down, and Yu Donglai directly said, "Boy, get in." Li Tianlan dragged his heavy and weak body into the passenger seat, fastened his seatbelt casually, and said, "So fast. I'm in a hurry. Who knows if someone will attack you during this time? I ran a few red lights on the road, but it's not a big deal." Yu Donglai shook his head. He was old, but his actions were extremely straightforward. He skillfully turned the car around, and the Audi went straight down the mountain. What's the matter with Wang Yuetong? Yu Donglai drove the car. After the assassination, it was normal that Wang Yuetong was not there. But when Li Tianlan was seriously injured, the Wang family of Beihai didn't make any arrangements and let him sit here and wait alone, which was not in line with the style of the Wang family of Beihai. As the leading wealthy family in Jianghu state, for many years, countless people had been angry at the strength and domineering of the Wang family of Beihai. But that was just the silent criticism from different standpoints. In terms of normal human relations, the Wang family of Beihai would hardly let people find any fault. Li Tianlan shook his head and said softly, "I can't bear too much affection. I just don't owe each other anything. That's the best result." Yu Donglai was slightly stunned. He subconsciously glanced at Li Tianlan with a serious look. In his sight, Li Tianlan's expression was calm, without frustration, regret, or unwillingness. The sunlight outside the window shone into the car. Li Tianlan tightly pursed his lips and looked firm. Yu Donglai sighed softly. The case of treason caused heavy losses to Jianghu state and also hurt the Southeast Group. At the time of the incident, the Wang family of Beihai was indeed facing a crisis. It was reasonable for them not to take action. There was nothing to say. What made it hard for these old people to let go was the rapid silence after the uproar of the Wang family of Beihai after the case of treason. After many years, people like Yu Donglai, who used to be part of the game, had become outsiders. But Li Tianlan's identity as a part of the game could not be changed. His attitude toward the Wang family of Beihai was even related to whether he had a narrow escape or a narrow escape. Thinking of this, Yu Donglai felt that he needed to persuade him. "Boy, do you have a knot in your heart that is hard to untie? To the Wang family of Beihai. Every man for himself, and heaven and earth destroy him." Li Tianlan smiled. "There's nothing to say. But it has happened. The Wang family of Beihai and the Li family can't go back." He looked at the prosperous scenery outside the window and muttered to himself, "We don't owe each other anything. We don't owe each other anything." This was not only about him and Wang Yuetong. In his heart, it was the best that the Li family and the Wang family of Beihai could do this. Yu Donglai shook his head and took out a pack of cigarettes from his pocket. He handed one to Li Tianlan and lit one for himself. The Audi shuttled through the traffic unhurriedly. Yu Donglai took a big drag on the cigarette and exhaled the smoke. Suddenly, his eyes became firm. "Boy, I'll let Qingyan follow you from now on. This girl is a little weak, but her means are not bad and her talent is also passable. She can hone herself in the Sky Academy and see more of the sinister people's hearts. Then she can wear off her weak temper. It won't be a problem for her to enter the thunder-shocking realm within 10 years. At that time, she can also help you a lot." Li Tianlan looked at Yu Donglai with a strange look in his eyes. "Get lost." Yu Donglai scolded him with a smile and exhaled a mouthful of smoke. "I said let Qingyan follow you and help you, not be your wife." You have a lot of love affairs in your life. I can't bear to let you harm my granddaughter, but she can still be an assistant. As he drove, his tone paused slightly. His smile faded and his eyes became a little lonely. Xuanyuantai of Kunlun, the god of war family. Hey. You may not feel anything, but when an old guy like me looks at you, I really feel sad. Boy, you're the most down-and-out member of the god of war's family I've ever seen. You're all alone and have no one to rely on. Fortunately, you've worked hard. Otherwise, the Li family would really become a forgotten legend. Li Tianlan smoked silently and said softly, "Thank you, Senior Yu. If I succeed, I will definitely treat Qingyan well." He could not refuse Yu Donglai, nor could he. This was the old man who fought with his grandfather in those days. Now he put his granddaughter by his side. Wasn't this also a kind of trust and dedication to the Li family? With his status, if the Li family was still there, Yu Donglai would definitely still be active on the top stage of Jianghu state. But now he could only live in a private home cuisine restaurant. His old contacts might still be there, but the wind and rain in Jianghu and the general trend of Jianghu state were getting farther and farther away from him. Was the old man really willing to accept such a result? If he was really willing, why did he put his granddaughter by his side? This was an old man's persistence and trust, and at the same time, it was his hope. What are you thanking me for? Yu Donglai threw away the cigarette butt, lit another one, and said softly, "The most important thing is to quickly build your own team. Your grandfather had 5 brothers with him, and your father had 8 people with him. They are the most core and most reliable team, known as the sacred guards of the god of war family. You don't have this condition now, but I still hope you can move faster. If you are willing to trust me, then you can fully trust Qingyan. Boy, grow up quickly. I'm not urging you, but I'm old, and the older I get, the more impatient I am. If I can see the Li family reappear in Jianghu state and set up the big brand of Xuanyuantai of Kunlun in my lifetime, I will die without regret." He drove and muttered to himself, "After I go down, I can also talk to those old brothers who left early." Li Tianlan tightly pursed his lips and said nothing. It seemed that he would never become a person who often patted his chest to make a promise. Most of the time he was silent, and he seemed to be used to silence. Yu Donglai started to talk and said softly, "We brothers at that time, the eldest was called War Bear, and he had thunder vein and was born with great power. His father used to be one of the sacred guards of His Highness's father. The eldest grew up with His Highness, and he was the most loyal. He was with His Highness the earliest, and he died the earliest. After he went to the border with His Highness, it was said that he died in the 2nd year. He was killed by the sneak attack and siege of the experts of Anan State. As an expert of the thunder-shocking realm or even a half-step to invincible realm, he died in such a grievance, but it made people respect him. The second was called Sirius, and he was an assassin with wind vein. He came and went like a ghost, and he was the most ferocious and cunning. Many of Quangtu's assassination skills were taught by Sirius. After Quangtu committed treason, His Highness was held accountable. The second was disheartened and went abroad. Later, he was also accused of treason. But he was alone, and he had nothing to worry about. In those years, he was a lone ranger in the Dark World, and he was famous in the Dark World. But 5 years ago, the second took a task to assassinate a person in Africa that he couldn't afford to offend. After the task failed, he also died. He was killed in 3 moves. This was the second brother who had the best relationship with me when I was young. When I heard the news, I almost went to Africa. But I couldn't go, and it was useless to go there. So I could only stay in my small restaurant and muddle along. The third was called Qing Dai, and she was the third sister. She was a real expert in intelligence work. The third sister had 2 sons. In the last battle of Quangtu's treason, the third sister's son and husband served in Quangtu's army. As a result, after that battle, Quangtu committed treason. Her husband died, and so did her eldest son. Only the youngest son was alive, but his legs were disabled. How tragic was that? When His Highness went to the border, the third sister didn't even show up, and she had no contact with me for many years. I guess she had a grudge against Quangtu, which was understandable. But it was a pity that such a beautiful woman when she was young became old. She died of brain cancer 3 years ago. When she died, she didn't even let her family come to tell me about her death. This kind of ruthlessness was not the third sister who risked her life to save me with the second brother when I was in a tight encirclement. The fourth is me, codenamed Poison Doctor. I have been with His Highness for the longest time, and my progress is the slowest. When I met His Highness, I was still doing scientific research in the biological laboratory of Jianghu State. I knew a little about martial arts, and the ice-condensing realm was just so. Once I made a research report, and somehow I was targeted by a foreign dark force. They sent a squadron led by a thunder-shocking realm expert to kidnap my family. In order to save me, His Highness chased that group of people for nearly 800 kilometers. The lives of our family were saved by His Highness. Since then, I have been with His Highness. My strength is average, but my means of using poison are passable. Gradually, I also have some fame in the dark world. When Quang Tu committed treason, my son and daughter-in-law were also in Quang Tu's army. My son was an officer, and my daughter-in-law was a military doctor. After that war, they also died, leaving only me and Qing Yan. When His Highness left, I went to see him off, but I didn't follow him. I don't know if His Highness will blame me for so many years. I don't hate His Highness, nor Quang Tu, but I am not reconciled. I don't believe that Quang Tu would commit treason. I can't let my son die so inexplicably. I really can't. Yu Donglai lit the third cigarette. His voice was hoarse, as if he was crying. Li Tianlan took a deep breath and opened his mouth. He wanted to say something, but he couldn't say a word. He knew who Yu Donglai was talking about. His grandfather once said that he was the old brother who had followed him for the longest time. After his death, Li Tianlan was just 2 years old. He had long forgotten the old man's appearance, but he knew that after the old man's death, it was his grandfather who dug the grave and set up the monument. He was buried in the unknown cemetery behind the border camp. Next to the old man's grave, there was an empty grave. When he was a child, Li Tianlan had never known for whom the empty grave was erected. It was not until more than a year ago when he secretly returned to the border from the desert in Beijiang that his grandfather laughed and said that the empty grave was prepared for himself that night, when he was half drunk. Li Tianlan had also seen the old man's children, a son and a daughter. In his memory, the uncle was quite tall and strong, and the aunt was plain but gentle. But now the old man's children also died at the border one after the other, less than a month apart. They were loyal and had no regrets, but in the end, they didn't have a good end and had no descendants. Whose responsibility was it? The Li family had failed them and many people, such as Yu Donglai now, Qing Dai who died of illness a few years ago, and the 120,000 soldiers who were wiped out with his father's treason, as Gu Yunxia said. These old scores were all engraved in Li Tianlan's heart, dripping with blood and deeply engraved in his bones. Kunlun City. Prince Group. Li Tianlan narrowed his eyes slightly to hide the demonic red light in the depths of his pupils, and murmured softly, "There will be an explanation, there will be." Yu Donglai patted Li Tianlan's palm and didn't speak. "Senior Yu, where is Lao Wu?" Li Tianlan was silent for a while and continued to ask. "Lao Wu, he is the youngest of the 5 of us, just over 60 years old this year, right? When he was with His Highness, he could even be regarded as a young man." His code name was Fireman, known as the strongest expert in the fire-flaming realm. Until the end, he never entered the thunder-shocking realm, but 8 or 10 people at the peak of the thunder-shocking realm died in his hands. Because he was young, he was sent by His Highness to serve as the second-in-command in Quang Tu's army. When Quang Tu committed treason, the border was chaotic and there were constant conflicts. He was on another front. But after Quang Tu committed treason, as the second-in-command of the army, Lao Wu was also held accountable and was directly thrown into the desert prison by the people of the Prince Group. There has been no news for many years, and no one knows whether he is dead or alive. At that time, His Royal Highness once said that among the 5 of us, Fireman was the first in terms of talent and was truly invincible. It is estimated that this sentence was one of the important reasons why Old 5 was finally sent to the prison in the desert of the northern frontier. Yu Donglai sighed softly. When he said this, his tone was not so angry or hateful, only a kind of numbness and sadness close to despair. "Army?" Li Tianlan repeated. "Yes, the army. Jianghu State Border Praetorian Corps. 20 years ago, your father was the commander of the army. At that time, both father and son entered the decision-making committee, which symbolized the pinnacle of power in Jianghu State. With one family and one clan, They guarded the peace of a city and a country. How prominent was it? Who dared to disobey? Yu Donglai's eyes were in a trance, full of memories. Li Tianlan's body stiffened slightly, and then returned to normal. I'm old and I like to talk nonsense. I've had thousands of words to say over the years, but I can't find the right person to say them to. When I first met you, you hid too deeply. I thought you were an idiot, and I was not in the mood to say it. Now it's different. Where is an idiot? You are clearly a genius. Boy, don't let us old guys down, please. Yu Donglai shook his head violently and laughed. Li Tianlan nodded silently and said nothing. By the way, Yu Donglai held the steering wheel and turned a corner. Suddenly he said, the map of God of War of Zhuanyuantai of Kunlun is known as the Bible of martial arts in the world. Which chapter of the map of God of War do you cultivate? The map of God of War. That was the supreme treasure of martial arts that represented all the martial arts inheritance of Zhuanyuantai of Kunlun. If taken out, it would probably be equivalent to a real martial arts manual. All the martial arts essences and unique skills of Zhuanyuantai of Kunlun were recorded in it. Its value was simply inestimable. The 3 martial arts essences of the map of God of War were all the great way to the invincible realm. But which one was chosen would determine its final achievement. Yu Donglai used to be one of Li Honghe's closest confidants, so he naturally knew the key. Li Tianlan lowered his eyes slightly and said calmly, it's the invincible manual. What? Yu Donglai seemed to not hear it clearly and was stunned for a moment. The map of God of War. The invincible manual. Li Tianlan repeated it again. Bang. Chapter 43. Yu Donglai was much quieter when he drove because he didn't hit anyone on the road but scratched a large piece of the car's paint. His agitated mood seemed to have returned to the numbness he had experienced over the years. Li Tianlan didn't show anything unusual on the surface, but his mind was in a mess. Even he didn't know what he was thinking about. His weak state caused by the injury gradually stabilized, but it was not optimistic. Halfway through the journey, his eyelids began to fight. Li Tianlan, who was extremely vigilant and seemed to be instinctively on guard against everyone, did not resist sleepiness this time. He sat in the passenger seat, grabbed the seatbelt, and fell asleep. Yu Donglai looked at Li Tianlan, who seemed to be completely relaxed. He smiled and quietly slowed down the car to make it run more smoothly. Yu Donglai deliberately slowed down the car and stopped the traffic for dozens of kilometers. It took him nearly 2 hours to finish the journey. Li Tianlan was dreaming all the way. The dream was messy, just like his current thoughts. The car stopped near Yu's private restaurant. Li Tianlan was still a little confused after being woken up by Yu Donglai. In the dream that seemed to last for a long time, there was his grandfather, a border veteran whom he had met when he was a child but was later buried in the cemetery, Qin Weibai, Ning Qianqing, Li Beitian, and Wang Yuetong. One by one, these characters appeared in the dream logically and naturally. However, as soon as he woke up from the dream, Li Tianlan, who was in a daze, felt that his mind was in a mess. He had a headache and his nose began to suffocate. Li Tianlan got out of the car with the blood-stained camouflage uniform and only a combat vest. He shivered as soon as he got out of the car. Li Tianlan sniffed and laughed at himself. He was afraid that he had a fever. The sequelae of forcibly improving the realm had begun. The fever was just the first step, a complete trifle. He had forcibly improved 2 realms, and now the power of the fire-flaming realm had disappeared. When his muscles were no longer tense and returned to normal, the pain was really worse than death. Li Tianlan touched his muscles and suddenly said, Senior Yu, is there a place to stay? I'll stay tonight. Whatever. Yu Donglai said indifferently, I'll ask Qingyan to clean up. You can stay as long as you want. 1 night is enough. It was estimated that his muscles would not completely relax until the afternoon or evening. After a night, he should get better. Li Tianlan had never experienced the state that was said to be worse than death. He did not know if he could bear it. But even if he could, he reckoned that he would not be able to drink with Li Beitian and Ning Qianqing at night. He might as well stay at Yu Donglai's place. When he recovered a little tomorrow, he would go to Qin Weibai to get the information and then meet up with them. 1 night it is. Yu Donglai walked into the alley and pushed the door open. It's almost time. Dinner is almost ready. You're seriously injured. After dinner, you should rest for a while. I'm going to the garden party. Li Tianlan stopped. Yu Donglai seemed to know what he wanted to ask and said directly, we have to know who the attacker is. Besides, didn't you want to be even with Yue Tong? In that case, I'll bring back some compensation. You've paid back what you owe her. But this is a life-saving grace, so she'll owe you now. That's not good either. Today, I'll make sure that both of you don't owe each other anything. Li Tianlan was silent for a while and said indifferently, that's fine. With his back to Li Tianlan, Yu Donglai slightly raised the corner of his mouth with a complicated smile. Wang Yuetong was such a stunning woman. How could this guy be so hard-hearted? Yu Qingyan, who was cooking in the kitchen, saw Li Tianlan walk into the yard. She was a little happy and ran out with a charming smile and called him Brother Li. Her eyes were innocent and filled with pure gratitude. She was in second place in the entrance maneuver this time. The reward of 50 credits was a complete surprise. Yu Qingyan was not weak. She entered the ice-condensing realm at her age and was almost a fire-flaming realm expert before the age of 25. If there were no accidents, it would not be a problem for her to enter the thunder-shocking realm at her peak. But what she had learned were all killing methods, which could not be used in the entrance maneuver. Therefore, the second place in the entrance maneuver was like a pie falling from the sky for Yu Qingyan. In her original plan, she would be satisfied if she could enter the top 50. Yu Donglai was known as the Poison Doctor. His unique skills were naturally closely related to poison. Yu Qingyan had received his impartation, but it was not very useful in an environment where killing was prohibited. If there was no rule against killing in the entrance maneuver and Yu Qingyan was ruthless enough, those ice-condensing realm experts could be knocked down in an instant. Even those experts in the fire-flaming realm had to be careful. Li Tianlan nodded with a smile. Looking at Yu Qingyan, whose eyes were pure and innocent, he sighed softly. In terms of talent and means, Yu Qingyan was naturally very good. But with her temperament, it was not something that could be changed overnight. She would have a lot of headaches in the future. Qingyan, how's the food? This guy was a little injured. I took the ice glass I hid in the cellar and boiled it. We'll add soup for lunch. Yu Donglai said with a smile. Then he explained to Li Tianlan, this girl has inherited all my culinary skills. It's a little like the pupil has surpassed the master. My private home cuisine restaurant is not big, but it has a lot of reservations. Several important guests came here for dinner, and it was this girl who made the dishes. You can try it later. I'm sure you'll be satisfied. Li Tianlan nodded. Looking at Yu Qingyan, who turned around and trotted to the cellar, he did not stand on ceremony and said with a smile, Senior Yu, such a precious thing as ice glass is in the cellar? Is it edible? Ice glass was an extremely precious plant. It liked the cold and was shaped like a lotus. It grew in a world of ice and snow all year round and was really a great tonic. Making soup was just one of its uses. Li Tianlan had seen records about ice glass in a book in the border camp. If ice glass was used as medicine with several other plants, its effect could almost be compared to the legendary gold elixir. It was the top holy thing for healing. Don't worry. I've done something in the cellar. When your injury is healed, I'll take you down to have a look. Yu Donglai smiled and led Li Tianlan into the dining room in the yard. He took out a jar of wine from the corner, and then went to the kitchen to bring back 2 dishes. Let's drink first and eat when we're ready. He sat opposite Li Tianlan and smiled. He opened the wine and poured it into the celadone bowl in front of Li Tianlan. He used a bowl instead of a cup. It could be seen that the old man was really going to be generous today. Although Li Tianlan was injured, he did not want to be a wet blanket. He picked up the bowl and took a sip. The wine was mellow and fragrant. It was really good wine. Then he froze. As soon as the wine entered his stomach, what he felt was not spiciness, but an extremely strong fragrance of medicine. The wine flowed down his throat, and Li Tianlan, who had been a little weak, felt warm all over and indescribably comfortable. How is it? Yu Donglai picked up a mouthful of food and said softly, I'm afraid this wine is more than 20 years old. At that time, your father had just entered the invincible realm and the international situation was chaotic. Your grandfather, your father, and a few of us old brothers were all addicted to wine. That's why we have this kind of wine today. It can drink and heal. The wine was made by me. With the status of the Li family at that time, what resources couldn't they get? In each jar of wine, I added more than 10 kinds of precious herbs. In the words of the dark world, they are medicinal plants. For example, ice glass. It was just one of the many types of wine I had, and it wasn't anything fancy. Since third sister was a woman, and women love to look beautiful, I added a lot of ice lotus hearts into it. In the end, no one could tell what this wine could do. It could heal, refresh, and even make one look good. Why do I care so much? As long as it's delicious. At that time, I made 50 jars of wine. In the end, we squandered it all in less than a month. Heal my ass. We didn't have that time. I was stingy at that time and hid 2 jars. I planned to find a chance to take them out to surprise my brothers, but I didn't expect that there would be no chance at all. After His Highness went to the border, I worked as a chef in the Hidden Dragon Sea. At that time, many chiefs coveted the 2 jars of wine in my hands. Even Wang Tianzong wanted them. I was not willing to give them to them. How could I give them away so easily? Who deserves to drink this wine? A few years ago, I came to Huiting and opened this small restaurant. It didn't take long for Little Bai to come to me. I was really happy that day and opened 1 jar. Today is the last one. Usually, it is hidden in the cellar. Today, knowing that you are coming, I took it out in advance and put it on display. The taste is probably just right now. Li Tianlan took another sip in silence. The wine was mellow with a hint of coolness. It soaked into his heart and lungs. The strong fragrance of medicine swept his taste buds again from top to bottom. Good wine. Li Tianlan nodded slightly and said softly, "Hey, Sister Yuetong? Didn't Grandpa say that you wouldn't come?" Yu Qingyan's sweet voice suddenly sounded from the yard. Li Tianlan raised his eyebrows subconsciously and was indifferent. Yu Donglai turned around and glanced at the small yard. Wang Yuetong was standing in the yard, biting her lip and seeming to be hesitant. Her aggrieved and worried look was really more beautiful than a flower, which made people feel pity for her. Yu Donglai suddenly smiled and said softly, "I said that you are destined to have a peach blossom. Look, the little princess has come to your door." Li Tianlan took a sip of wine and said nothing. "Don't be confused. It's not difficult to understand why this little girl has her eyes on you. I heard from Qing Yan that your performance in the entrance maneuver was really outstanding. You have the wind and thunder veins and killed the enemy across realms. No matter how prominent Wang Yuetong's identity is, she is still a young girl at the age of love. Even if she doesn't fall in love at first sight, it's not surprising that she can't help but get close to a really outstanding peer. Plus, you saved the damsel in distress today. Why can't she be moved? Wang Yuetong will get married sooner or later. In the whole Zhongzhou state, how many people can match Wang Yuetong's family background? Even if there was, with her father's arrogant personality, he might not be interested. But you are different. As long as you join the Wang family of Beihai, you will be a proper expert of the invincible realm in the future. You and Wang Yuetong will be a good story. Otherwise, no matter how much Wang Tianzong spoils his daughter, when it's time for her to get married, won't she? Under such circumstances, Wang Yuetong can find a man with great potential who sincerely appreciates her. She will never refuse. It's natural that she has her eyes on you. But if it's just like that, then it's nothing. Even if you save her once, she might not be so eager to repay you with her body. At most, she might be a little moved, and then there will be some tentative contact. But you, boy, just saved her life and you want to be even with the Wang family of Beihai. You really want to be even, but what's the difference between this method and loosening the reins? It's so brilliant. You've outsmarted yourself. Not to mention Wang Yuetong. Even a strong woman who has been through hardships and seen big scenes can be teased to death by you. Look, you've just arrived, and you've come to my door? You've overreached yourself. I guess this girl has quarreled with Wang Xiaoyao because of this. Li Tianlan's mouth muscles twitched. He suddenly felt that the good wine in front of him was tasteless. He picked up the bowl and put it down, smiling bitterly. I didn't tease her. It doesn't matter what you think about this kind of thing. It's the truth anyway. It doesn't matter what you say. Yu Donglai was smiling. He seemed to be gloating over the misfortune of others. Li Tianlan's expression was stiff and he was lost in thought. In the yard, Wang Yuetong, who had chatted with Yu Qingyan, seemed to have finally plucked up her courage and walked into the restaurant step by step. The sound of high-heeled shoes tapping on the ground was getting closer and closer. Finally, she entered the door. The little princess of the Wang family of Beihai, who had changed her clothes, stood quietly at the door. She pursed her lips, feeling a little wronged and uneasy. She looked at Li Tianlan with burning eyes. Li Tianlan only felt dizzy. He deliberately turned his head away and did not look at her. Wang Yuetong hesitated again and finally walked to Li Tianlan step by step. The natural fragrance of a young girl slowly drifted over, and Wang Yuetong's soft and aggrieved voice also rang in Li Tianlan's ears. "Senior brother, how's your injury?" Li Tianlan had mixed feelings. He wanted to say something, but when he thought of the complicated involvement that might occur in the future, he simply gritted his teeth and hardened his heart. He looked cold and said nothing. Wang Yuetong waited for a while and did not get an answer. She bit her pink and red lips hard, and tears seemed to be swirling in her eyes. "Why did you do this to me? Did I provoke you?" Li Tianlan drank up the wine in the bowl and still kept silent. Such a delicate and stunning beauty looked aggrieved at this time. Yu Donglai could not bear to see such a scene. He coughed dryly. He was thinking of smoothing things over. The sound of high-heeled shoes tapping on the ground outside the door rang again. Everyone looked up at the same time. Yu Donglai's expression was strange. Wang Yuetong slightly opened her small mouth and seemed a little surprised. Li Tianlan suddenly stood up. Surprise and astonishment appeared on his face, and he completely lost his composure. A woman that could not be described with any gorgeous words walked into the yard lightly. She wore a small black suit, a white shirt, trousers, and high-heeled shoes. Her long black and beautiful hair casually fell on her shoulders. She wore no makeup and no decoration, but she was as beautiful as a painting. Her beauty was beyond imagination. Her steps were a little hurried. Bathed in the sunshine outside the window, she stepped over the flowers in the yard and went straight to the dining room. She was so beautiful and peerless. Li Tianlan stared at her blankly, completely dumbfounded. Wang Yuetong bit her lips, feeling more and more aggrieved. She even felt like an ugly duckling standing in front of a swan, and for the first time, she felt a little ashamed. In terms of appearance, she might not lose to this woman who suddenly appeared. But the elegant and quiet calmness and gentleness of this woman were not something that a girl of Wang Yuetong's age could have. This kind of charm was enough to make any man lose himself in an instant. Wang Yuetong knew this woman. Qin Weibai. This was the woman that second uncle yearned for even in his dreams but was unable to obtain. In the past, Wang Yuetong only envied her unparalleled charm. But at this moment, she had some feelings of jealousy for the first time. Qin Weibai walked into the dining room and looked straight at Li Tianlan, her eyes bright. Wang Yuetong, who was closest to Li Tianlan, took a step back subconsciously. Then she suddenly reacted and flew into a rage. Like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, her little face turned red. Li Tianlan finally came to his senses and stammered. Looking at the dreamy woman in front of him, he did not know what to say. He raised his hand, subconsciously scratched his head, and giggled. Chapter 44. He dreamed of her and tossed and turned restlessly. Plus, he was a little hesitant. Li Tianlan undoubtedly had this kind of complicated and simple mentality towards Qin Weibai. Before he met Qin Weibai, he didn't know what love at first sight was. But when he saw her get out of the car at Huiting railway station that day, Li Tianlan understood. He told himself at that time that she was the most perfect woman. If there was a fairy who was so beautiful that she seemed to be above the mortal world, it should be her. After a day of contact, they chatted and video-chatted thousands of miles away. Qin Weibai asked Li Tianlan if he missed her. How could he not? He thought so much that he almost went berserk, but what else could he do other than think? Could he really have such a woman? Was she really something he could have now? He couldn't be blamed for worrying about personal gains and losses. He was a young man who had almost nothing in the deep mountains and forests. When he met the goddess in his heart, no matter how well the goddess treated him, he couldn't accept it calmly. Being on tenterhooks was the least of his worries. There might be fierce men who had nothing but dared to throw themselves on the goddess's bed when they saw her, but he wasn't Li Tianlan. He really liked this woman. He liked her very much. He even regarded it as his greatest ambition to have her. How heavy was this kind of love? But at this moment, Holding Qin Weibai's face in his hands and feeling her tender and delicate skin, Li Tianlan's heart had never been at peace. He looked at Qin Weibai's face seriously. At this moment, he was finally sure that the woman in front of him was very close to him. She was so close that he could see his own reflection in her bright eyes, so clearly. Li Tianlan looked at her quietly. He had 1,000 words in his heart, but he couldn't say them. He was actually obsessed. Ahem. Yu Donglai coughed heavily and interrupted the two people in front of him. Sit down first. Qingyan, it's time to eat, right? Serve the dishes. Boy, drink 3 bowls of wine before you eat. It's good for your injury. As for the rest, you can take it and bring the jar back to me after you finish. Li Tianlan seemed to wake up from a dream and subconsciously let go of her. When his fingers left the soft skin, he suddenly felt a little reluctant. He wanted to touch it again, but he didn't have the cheek to do so. For a moment, he blushed and became more and more embarrassed. Qin Weibai smiled and took the initiative to hold his hand. She said softly, I heard that you were attacked and injured? It's just a small injury. It's not a big deal. Li Tianlan shook his head, his face flushed. Half nervous and half excited, he giggled. Qin Weibai took a deep look at him and then turned to look at Wang Yuetong, who still had tears in her eyes but had regained her composure. Tianlan got hurt to save you. Her tone was flat, but under her gaze, Wang Yuetong only felt pressure. It was not the sword intent and killing intent in martial arts, but an innate aura, not strong but clear. Yes. Wang Yuetong bit her lip and stared into Qin Weibai's eyes. In order to protect me, senior brother fought to the death and forcibly raised his realm to the fire-flaming realm. He killed several experts in the ice-condensing realm and 2 in the fire-flaming realm with 3 swords. Wang Yuetong's tone was light, but in Qin Weibai's eyes, it was inevitable that she was sulking and showing off. Do you know how dangerous it is to forcibly raise his realm with his current strength? Qin Weibai gently raised the corner of her mouth into a cold and sharp arc, and the atmosphere of the whole restaurant seemed to become cold in an instant. Wang Yuetong seemed to move a little uneasily. She had never experienced such a scene of jealousy and blame. But looking at Qin Weibai's face, which made her lose confidence more and more, she still stubbornly said, Senior brother Tianlan didn't blame me, you. It's a virtue for a man to be generous. Qin Weibai interrupted Wang Yuetong and said lightly, It's understandable that he doesn't blame you. But I'm a woman, and women are all narrow-minded. He risked his life to save you. You can use it as a capital to show off your charm, but I feel sorry for him. She paused and then said with a smile, But it's none of your business. Later, I'll send someone to the Wang family of Beihai to ask for an explanation. Nonsense, I didn't. Wang Yuetong's little face turned red again, and her big eyes looked at Li Tianlan in a panic. She seemed to be explaining, I didn't use senior brother Tianlan's risking his life to save me as a capital to show off. She pointed at Qin Weibai in exasperation, her eyes angry. Qin Weibai just said, oh lightly, and then ignored Wang Yuetong. She just looked at Li Tianlan with a smile. I owe junior sister Yuetong some favors. Today, I did it willingly. Li Tianlan sighed in his heart. He didn't know whether to explain to Qin Weibai or to help Wang Yuetong out of trouble. Qin Weibai didn't say anything, but her small hand holding Li Tianlan's under the table slightly tightened. I ask senior brother Tianlan. Wang Yuetong, whose face was red and even her breathing was rapid, seemed to have thought of a perfect counterattack. She suddenly said, he said he didn't have a girlfriend. Really? Qin Weibai smiled sweetly, raised her hand holding Li Tianlan's, and shook it slightly toward Wang Yuetong. She said softly, then he has one now. Simple, direct and domineering. She didn't even ask for Li Tianlan's opinion. Yu Donglai, who was ignored, didn't get angry. He smiled and shook his head. At this moment, Qin Weibai was the most familiar to him, but also the most strange. He was familiar because Qin Weibai acted like this most of the time when he saw her. He was strange because he didn't expect this girl to be so sharp even when it came to jealousy. Although Wang Yuetong was inexperienced, she was not a simple character. How many minutes had it been? How many times had she been killed in seconds? The old man quietly raised his eyelids and glanced at Wang Yuetong. He saw that the little princess of the Wang family of Beihai was staring at Li Tianlan and Qin Weibai's hands holding together. Her eyes were complicated and a little sad, but then they became firm again. Yu Donglai silently said in his heart, "I've outsmarted myself." He smiled playfully. It was said that Tianlan was fated to have a peach blossom. It was estimated that there would be a lot of fun around him in the future. Li Tianlan's brain was dizzy and blank. He was at a loss, but more than that, he was pleasantly surprised from the bottom of his heart. Everything that happened today was like a dream. In the silence, Flaming Fire, who was almost inseparable from Qin Weibai, pushed the door and walked into the restaurant. As soon as she entered the door, this cold beauty glared at Li Tianlan. Her eyes were angry, as if she was going to kill someone. Li Tianlan suddenly came back to his senses and felt puzzled. He had no idea what he had done to offend this heroine. It seemed that from the beginning when they met, she didn't like him. Flaming Fire walked to the side and sat down without saying a word. Even when she was eating, she was gnashing her teeth, which made Li Tianlan's hair stand on end. For Flaming Fire, the boss was really the most outstanding woman in the world. However, the boss, who had always been aloof and indifferent to everything, behaved extremely abnormally after seeing Li Tianlan. Not to mention how crazy her plot in Billy State was. Her sudden return to Jianghu State this time was hard for Flaming Fire to understand, and even incredible. But that was not all. The boss rushed back to Huiting without stopping. When she arrived near Yu's private restaurant, she didn't even give her time to find a place to park the car. Before the car stopped, she got out directly. Because she was too eager, she even twisted her ankle. All this was because of Li Tianlan. Flaming Fire was so sad that she almost collapsed on the spot. After she managed to calm down, she naturally didn't give Li Tianlan a good look. The meal was calm and full of killing intent. Even Li Tianlan, who was slow to realize, felt a little uncomfortable halfway through the meal. Every time Qin Weibai and Wang Yuetong's eyes met, there seemed to be sparks. Their occasional verbal confrontation could be said to kill people without spilling blood. Yu Donglai watched the scene with a smile. Flaming Fire had been staring at Li Tianlan covetously. Such a strange atmosphere really made Li Tianlan's balls hurt. He barely ate half full and wanted to slip away. Anyway, he was injured now, so it was not wrong to have a good rest. However, as soon as he stood up, Wang Yuetong suddenly said softly, "Senior brother Tianlan, Baitian and Chenqing have also come out. Shall we have dinner together tonight?" Li Tianlan was injured, so he had decided not to have dinner today. In addition, the dinner was probably the most painful time when his muscles were completely relaxed. He subconsciously wanted to refuse, but when he looked at Wang Yuetong's expectant eyes, he opened his mouth but didn't know how to phrase it. "Tianlan, take me home after dinner, okay? Let's go back and have a rest. You can ask your friends to come home. I'll cook for you." Qin Weibai said softly, "Take me home. Follow me home." The meaning was basically the same, but the charm was completely different. "Okay, go home." Li Tianlan was excited and said without hesitation. Wang Yuetong forced a smile and continued to eat. Qin Weibai. She had heard this name countless times and met her several times before. She had a good relationship with Wang Xiaoyao, so she naturally knew how infatuated her second uncle was with this woman. Even in the previous meetings, Wang Yuetong also regarded Qin Weibai as her future second aunt. In the previous meetings, Wang Yuetong's deepest impression of Qin Weibai was that she was beautiful. She had never seen a woman who was more beautiful than Qin Weibai in her life, and she had praised her second uncle for his good taste. As for other things, there was nothing else. But it was not until today that she completely understood how wrong she was. The identity of the future second aunt had long disappeared. At this time, facing Qin Weibai as a rival in love, Wang Yuetong actually felt a sense of suffocation. What a powerful opponent. Wang Yuetong thought silently. When she lowered her head to eat, her eyes were bright and sparkling, and there was no flinching fighting spirit in her eyes. Yu Donglai's evaluation could be said to be right. This time, it seemed that she had really outsmarted herself. After a lunch that was not a living hell but definitely not comfortable, Wang Yuetong, who realized that it would be difficult to defeat Qin Weibai today, restrained her mind and stood up to leave. Yu Qingyan and Li Tianlan stood up to see her off. But this time, it was really a pure classmate's farewell. Wang Yuetong bit her lip and glanced at him. She silently walked out of the restaurant and out of the alley. Until her figure got into the car and left, Li Tianlan did not say a word. In the restaurant, after Li Tianlan and the other two left, Yu Donglai, who who had been watching for a long time, slightly narrowed his eyes and whispered, "You sent someone to protect that guy?" "It's Horsewoman." Qin Weibai nodded and said in a calm tone. "What a big deal." Yu Donglai smiled slightly and picked up a mouthful of food. "Why do you suddenly want to come back? Things not going well over there?" "Not bad. I just want to come back to see him." When mentioning Li Tianlan, Qin Weibai's eyes were as gentle as water, and there was a kind of heartfelt joy in her tone. Such eyes, such tone, if not for the deep love carved in her bones, there would be absolutely no such feelings. Yu Donglai sighed again, a little baffled, but now he was too lazy to get involved in the young people's love. He would just watch the fun. Flaming fire. Qin Weibai lowered her head to eat a mouthful of rice and suddenly spoke. "Boss." Flaming Fire subconsciously put down her bowl and chopsticks and listened attentively. "Go to the garden party." Qin Weibai's tone was indifferent. "Go to Wang Xiaoyao. We can't let Tianlan's injury go like this. He saved Wang Yuetong's life, so we should at least ask them to come up with something really good. Wang Xiaoyao has a medicine, and only one, codenamed Youth. Go and get it." "Okay." Flaming Fire nodded expressionlessly and stood up to leave. Yu Donglai's expression changed dramatically. Codenamed Youth. This kind of medicine, even in the Wang family of Beihai, was the most precious thing. Wang Xiaoyao was known as King Xiaoyao of the Wang family of Beihai. Such a person only had one, which showed how amazing this thing was. Flaming Fire walked to the door and suddenly stopped. Youth could be said to be the core treasure of the Wang family of Beihai. Even in the Wang family of Beihai, the stock was extremely limited, so it could be imagined how difficult this trip would be. She turned around, looked at Qin Weibai and whispered, "Boss, what if Wang Xiaoyao doesn't give it to me? Then kill him." Qin Weibai took a sip of ice glass soup. Her tone was as soft as a young girl's, but what she said was shocking. "In any case, I want that youth." Flaming Fire's expression did not change, and she went straight out. She naturally knew what Qin Weibai's words meant. But since the boss was not afraid, she was not afraid. Even if she might face Wang Tianzong. Facing the human emperor, the head of the 12 murderous weapons. As for Wang Xiaoyao's infatuation, it was just wishful thinking. What was there to say? "I'll go with her. Little Bai, you don't have to clean up the dishes. Go do what you should do after dinner." As soon as Flaming Fire went out, Yu Donglai, whose expression changed, jumped up and rushed out of the restaurant. The flowers in the yard were in full bloom, and the sun was just right. Yu Donglai felt a little tired. He looked up at the sun and shook his head slightly. It was said that the people of Samsara Palace were crazy. Chapter 45. Holding Qin Weibai's soft hand, he walked out of the courtyard of Yu's private restaurant. What followed was the most exciting time for Li Tianlan to be alone. The alley was dozens of meters long, and the two walked in silence. Li Tianlan, who usually didn't talk much, opened his mouth several times but didn't know what to say. He could only hold Qin Weibai's hand subconsciously. His palm was sweaty. "Tianlan, are you nervous?" Qin Weibai turned her head and looked at him. Her smile was soft and playful, and there was a hint of playfulness in it. Qin Weibai's attitude was destined to be unknown, which made Li Tianlan fall into a trance again. "I'm nervous." Li Tianlan nodded honestly. At the dinner table, Qin Weibai said she wanted to be his girlfriend. Boyfriend and girlfriend, lovers, and finally husband and wife. How intimate was this relationship? But holding Qin Weibai's hand, Li Tianlan always felt that something was missing. Of course, there was unexpected happiness and satisfaction. But when he thought about it carefully, there seemed to be a lack of a natural feeling between them. Or it could be said that this was his one-sided feeling. Qin Weibai was very natural to him. Too natural. It was a tenderness that seemed to be integrated into her instinct, quietly moistening things. Unconsciously, Li Tianlan had already been unable to extricate himself. But from Li Tianlan's point of view, such feelings came too abruptly. Therefore, Li Tianlan was more confused than nervous at the moment. "Why are you nervous? Are you afraid that I'll eat you?" Qin Weibai smiled sweetly and took out the key to open the car door. Yu Donglai went to the garden party with Flaming Fire, so the car they drove here was left behind. Now the two of them could drive home. Li Tianlan sat in the passenger seat silently, with a heavy heart. Qin Weibai said no more. She drove the car slowly away from Yu's private restaurant. While driving seriously, she stared at the road ahead with clear eyes, as if there was no dust in her clean eyes. Li Tianlan sighed softly and finally took the initiative to poke through the window paper he had guessed for a long time. He whispered, "What's the relationship between you and my father?" His father, Li Guangtu, committed treason and died 20 years ago. This year, Qin Weibai was not even 24 years old. In terms of time, it did not match at all. But in Li Tianlan's mind, this was the most likely assumption. If Qin Weibai had some connection with his father, or if she had gotten something from him, she would have taken good care of Li Tianlan and was even willing to give herself to him. Although it was absurd, at least there was a reason for it. Although this reason was not convincing, in Li Tianlan's opinion, it was also the most likely one. As for the connection between his grandfather and Qin Weibai, it was even more unlikely. For many years, his grandfather had always stayed in Li's village. The number of times he went out was pitifully few. It was impossible for him to trust Qin Weibai's position without reservation. Unless Qin Weibai had some connections with his father, then his grandfather would accept that business card. Your father. While driving, Qin Weibai turned her head and glanced at Li Tianlan. I don't know him, she said softly. What about that business card? Li Tianlan looked at Qin Weibai seriously and found that she did not seem to be faking it. He felt a headache. But now, his feelings for Qin Weibai were almost out of his control. If he did not figure it out, he would not feel at ease in any case. When Grandpa gave me your business card, he said that you can be completely trusted. Li Tianlan said calmly, his eyes soft. At that time, Li Honghe's words sounded simple, but how could Li Tianlan not understand what it meant? When Li Tianlan took the business card and made the call, it was almost equivalent to handing over the safety of himself and the border camp to Qin Weibai. After coming to Huiting, Li Tianlan, who had a preliminary understanding of the current general situation, naturally knew how dangerous such a move was. If Qin Weibai had the slightest idea and revealed the news, then not only would Li Tianlan die without a burial place, but also all the people who were still holed up at the border at this time would not have a good end. But even so, Grandpa still casually gave him Qin Weibai's business card. What did it mean? Could it be that Grandpa really had contact with Qin Weibai? Li Tianlan thought quickly. In the year when Li village was far away from the border, Qin Weibai was just a little girl of 3 or 4 years old. Over the years, Grandpa had only left Li village a few times, and each time he left, it was no longer than a month. Under such circumstances, no matter how much contact Grandpa had with Qin Weibai, the time was limited. Why did he trust Qin Weibai so much? You, Li Tianlan opened his mouth, but this time Qin Weibai directly interrupted him and said softly, in the year when you were in the desert, I went to the border, met your grandfather, and then left my business card. That's all. That's all. Li Tianlan's face was full of disbelief. Many things are not as complicated as you think. Don't be angry, I'm telling the truth. Although I don't like your grandfather, I have to say that he is a very wise and courageous old man. He used to be the god of war of Jianghu state. Even though he has lived in seclusion for many years, he is still elegant. Qin Weibai slowed down the car and said in a leisurely tone, so don't make wild guesses. I have nothing to do with your father or your grandfather. I went to the border just for you, and it only has something to do with you. Are you satisfied with this answer? Not only was Li Tianlan not satisfied, but he also felt even more puzzled. Only has something to do with me. What kind of relationship is this kind of relationship that we have never met? Is it worth such a beauty to want to throw herself at me? You said you're willing to be my girlfriend. Li Tianlan took a deep breath and calmed himself down. Dealing with beautiful women was never a worry-free thing. Wang Yuetong was like this, and Qin Weibai was even more so. Not only did a few words not clear up his doubts, but they also made him more confused. What's the matter? Yes. Qin Weibai nodded gently, blushing, but her tone became more and more natural. From today on, you are my boyfriend, so don't be nervous, okay? No matter how I am outside in front of you, I am me. If you are nervous in front of me, I will feel like a failure. Li Tianlan looked at Qin Weibai, lost in thought. Qin Weibai deliberately did not look at him, but just whispered, Tianlan, There are some things that I can't tell you now. I don't mean to hide it, but I don't know how to say it. Give me some time. When I'm ready, you will know everything. I have no secrets in front of you. Li Tianlan's eyes softened, and he reached out to hold Qin Weibai's palm on the steering wheel. He smiled and said, "Do you like me?" "I more than like you." Qin Weibai's body seemed to be a little weak. She looked at the road ahead and muttered to herself, "I more than like you." As the saying goes, love doesn't know where it starts, but it goes deep. Does it describe people like us? Li Tianlan looked at Qin Weibai, who was obviously a little absent-minded, and pretended to be relaxed and made a joke. Qin Weibai did not laugh. Love doesn't know where it starts? Don't know where it starts? She bit her lip, and the corners of her mouth rose subconsciously, but her eyes were a little sad. The car drove into a villa area that could only be regarded as mid-range in Huating. Qin Weibai drove the car into the small courtyard of the villa and parked it. They both got out of the car. Before getting out of the car, Qin Weibai opened the storage box. The storage box was obviously modified, and it had a password. Her expression was calm, and she entered a long string of complicated passwords into it. From inside, she took out the blue notebook that Li Tianlan was familiar with, but also strange at the same time. Li Tianlan glanced at it, but did not say anything. After getting out of the car, he took a few steps forward and subconsciously wanted to hold Qin Weibai's small hand. Her hand was as soft and slender as warm jade. As long as he held it, he was reluctant to let go. But Qin Weibai took a few quick steps forward and directly held his arm tightly. Li Tianlan's body stiffened, and he felt Qin Weibai's body almost completely sticking to him. He only felt a raging flame directly rising in his body. But when he saw the blue notebook that Qin Weibai regarded as a treasure, his heart moved, and he calmed down. He wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. "What do you want to say?" Qin Weibai held his arm and raised her head. Her face was delicate and charming. This was the true charm of a woman. Li Tianlan almost forgot where he was for a moment, and then he came to his senses. He laughed at himself and said softly, "I haven't asked you before, but in my heart, I always think that you have something to do with my father or my grandfather, and that's why you are so good to me. Even the notebook in your hand. I once thought it was my father's. But since you said that you have nothing to do with my father, then who does the weekly notebook of the Sky Academy in your hand belong to?" Qin Weibai showed a rare hesitation. Li Tianlan was trying to find something to talk about. Seeing Qin Weibai like this, he said at once, "I just asked casually. If it's not convenient to say, then forget it." "There's nothing inconvenient about it." Qin Weibai opened the front door of the villa, walked in holding Li Tianlan's arm, and said softly, "I just don't know how to say it. You should have a look at this notebook, but now is not the time. I'll give it to you when the time is right." "You said that this weekly notebook has something to do with me?" Li Tianlan looked surprised. He vaguely seemed to find a reason why Qin Weibai fell in love with him, but it was a little unbelievable. "It doesn't matter much, but it will help you." Qin Weibai pulled Li Tianlan to sit on the sofa. Her smile was tranquil, just like the decoration of the villa. The interior of the villa, which was about 1,000 square meters, had nothing to do with the splendor of gold and jade, but it made people feel extremely comfortable. From the overall layout to the small details, it was very stylish and had a strong sense of home. She poured a glass of water for Li Tianlan and gently touched the notebook in her hand. Her eyes were in a trance, and she said softly, "This notebook records everything about a chosen one in the past 10 years, including his experience, psychology, views, and even martial arts experience. Everything is in great detail. When the time is right, I will give it to you." A proud son of heaven. Not just anyone could use this term. Not even any invincible figure could use it. Among the 4 invincible realm experts in Wuxia, it was estimated that only Wang Tianzong, who held the human emperor, could barely be related to this word. The heavenly sons of Jianghu state were born every 500 years. Any one of them was powerful enough to defeat the entire dark world. This person, Li Tianlan frowned. He's been dead for a long time. Qin Weibai's calm tone made Li Tianlan feel strange. She held a delicate celadone teacup in both hands, and her eyes were in a trance, as if she was lost in memories. He can be said to be the most arrogant and ambitious person I have ever seen. When I first met him, it was at Huating Airport. At that time, the only invincible realm expert on the killer list secretly sneaked into Huiting for unknown purposes. The Jianghu state government originally asked him to investigate the purpose of the invincible realm killer, but he didn't bother to do so and directly came with the intention of killing. On the day he came, almost all the high-level officials in Huiting went to the airport to pick him up, including the top leader of Huiting, who was very likely to go one step higher. I happened to be there that day. When he got off the private plane, he smiled and looked very kind, with a pet dog in his hand. The top leader of Huiting, who was not on good terms with him, went up and wanted to shake hands with him. But he put the leash of the dog in the hand of the top leader, who was a member of the decision-making committee. As for the others, he didn't even look at them and directly attacked. Attacked? Li Tianlan raised his eyebrows and asked in confusion, who did he attack? He attacked the invincible realm killer. I don't know which high-level official he came for. That day, he pretended to be a staff member of the airport and was waiting for an opportunity to take action. Unfortunately, before the invincible realm killer had time to take action, he was discovered by him. The whole battle only lasted a few seconds. The invincible realm killed the invincible realm. Unarmed, life and death were decided in an instant. Li Tianlan's heart beat violently, and his face was fascinated. The invincible realm killed the invincible realm, and it was an instant kill. That kind of scene was beyond his imagination. Really domineering. Then what? He asked. Qin Weibai glanced at him with an unreadable look and said with a chuckle, what then? Then he pulled the leash of the dog from the top leader of Huiting, boarded the plane again, and left. From the beginning to the end, he didn't talk to those high-level officials of Huiting. I asked him later, and he said there was nothing to talk about. They were a group of clowns, and he would rather play with baby than socialize with them. Qin Weibai smiled with a complicated look in her eyes, and took the initiative to explain, baby is the pet dog he raised. Li Tianlan was lost in thought, but the image of that heavenly son was formed subjectively in his mind. Arrogant, domineering, silent, fierce, and insufferably arrogant. It was a pity that such a person died. Fortunately, he died. Listening to Qin Weibai's explanation, he smiled and said, that dog was quite lucky. Yes, it could be said to be the most valuable pet dog in years. When he was alive, no one dared to provoke his dog, not to mention him. At a high-profile private party, it was said that a certain invincible realm figure in Kunlun City accidentally stepped on the dog's tail and refused to apologize. In less than 3 days, he died on the way back to Kunlun City, without a whole body. Qin Weibai held the cup, and her words were calm, but her eyes became more and more dazed. Li Tianlan's eyelids twitched, and he once again added a new impression to this strong man. Extreme madness. Such a figure really had the demeanor of ignoring everything and sweeping everything away. Li Tianlan suddenly thought of a sentence, and said casually, that's what a man should be like. That's what a man should be like? Qin Weibai smiled bitterly. At that time, he was indeed insufferably arrogant and invincible. But so what? Didn't he die in the end? He made his debut at the age of 19, and was killed at the age of 29. 10 years of magnificent events, but in the end, wasn't it a sad song? Li Tianlan was stunned. In any case, he had never thought that such a figure would die at such a young age. How did he die? He asked softly. This time, Qin Weibai was silent for a full 5 minutes, and then said softly, it was said that he died in a siege, but in fact he died of betrayal. His last battle was earth-shattering. More than 20 experts at the peak of the thunder-shocking realm and 6 invincible realm experts besieged him at the same time, but all the thunder-shocking realm experts were annihilated. 6 invincible realm experts, 3 died, 1 was disabled, and 2 were seriously injured. Actually, even at that time when he was at the end of his rope, he still had a sword that he hadn't drawn. If that sword had been unsheathed, he would have been able to take everyone down with him. But at the last moment, the woman he loved the most, who also loved him the most, stabbed him in the heart. Before he died, he didn't go crazy, nor was he angry. He just looked at her quietly, and finally died in her arms. Perhaps there was nothing more sorrowful than a dead heart, and he died with everlasting regret. More than 20 experts at the peak of the thunder-shocking realm were annihilated. 6 invincible realm experts, 3 died, and 1 was disabled. Li Tianlan was stunned, and his heart was in turmoil. With such combat capability, It was absolutely not an exaggeration to call him the heavenly son of the age. It could almost be said that he was invincible in the world. But such an outstanding person, in the end, died in the hands of his beloved woman. Could he really die in peace? Li Tianlan subconsciously thought of himself. What if one day he was invincible in the world and was stabbed in the back by Qin Weibai after defeating all the enemies? That was really the sorrow of dying with everlasting regret, but he couldn't hate it. A man and a woman, from the very beginning, were in different positions. If they were forced to be together, it would be an ill-fated relationship. Qin Weibai took a deep breath and said in a complicated tone, "What's his name?" Li Tianlan suddenly asked. Hearing this story, he also felt bad. If he was in the shoes of himself, that kind of deep sorrow almost made him breathless. Chapter 46. Dongqing Huang Tu. For Li Tianlan, this was a completely strange name. But for the Dongqing clan, it was like thunder piercing his ears. After coming to Huiting, although he had not seen it with his own eyes, several people had told him about this behemoth that dominated Zhongyuan province. The frequency of this family's name ringing in his ears was almost second only to that of the Wang family of Beihai and Kunlun City. Jianghu State's military industry giant was the most qualified superpower to represent the giant group of Jianghu State. Many top-secret military enterprises in Jianghu State were directly or indirectly under the control of the Dongqing clan. In addition, Jianghu State's most elite and most powerful border Praetorian Corps had 550,000 troops. Based on these general impressions, Li Tianlan was sure that this was one of the most powerful superpowers in Jianghu State. But now, Qin Weibai told him that there was a heavenly son of the Dongqing clan named Dongqing Huang Tu. He was truly invincible in the world, a heavenly son of the heavenly son who could take on an entire nation on his own. But no matter how he thought about it, he felt that something was wrong. He didn't know what was wrong, but the idea never disappeared. The border Praetorian Corps, the Dongqing clan, Zhuanyuantai of Kunlun, his father, the current patriarch of the Dongqing clan, Dongqing Wudi, the commander of the border Praetorian Corps known as the God of Massacre of Jianghu State. Vaguely, Li Tianlan felt that there seemed to be some subtle things that only people in the game could understand. He thought about it silently, but he could not find the key. At present, the only thing he knew was that after his father Li Kuang-tu committed treason, Dongqing Wudi, known as the God of Massacre, directly replaced his father and became the new commander of the border Praetorian Corps. The key to all those subtle things that he couldn't figure out might lie in this change of position. Li Tianlan's mind wandered. For the first time, he was curious about the Dongqing clan. Dongqing Wudi, the God of Massacre of Jianghu State. Dongqing Huangtu, the current heavenly son. Dongqing Rushi, the genius of the young generation of the Dongqing clan, had entered the fire-flaming realm at the age of 19. These were the three members of the Dongqing clan that Li Tianlan knew so far. As for how many other outstanding talents were hidden in this transcendental family? Dongqing Huangtu, Li Tianlan murmured twice. How long has he been dead? She asked softly. It has been a long time, Qin Weibai said as she held the glass of water. Li Tianlan glanced at her. When he first heard this story, he had a strange feeling, and now he finally understood what was going on. When Qin Weibai and Dongqing Huangtu met for the first time, she was able to go to the airport with a group of high-level officials in Huiting at the same time. Even if she was just at the end of the table, such a status was quite high. How old was Qin Weibai now? How old could Qin Weibai be when she first met Dongqing Huangtu? He had been dead for a long time. No matter how long it had only been a matter of a few years. At this moment, he recalled the conversation he had with Zhuang Huayang. Zhuang Huayang said that in the past 20 years, every 5 years, there would be a major event in Jianghu State. Except for a few things that had nothing to do with the Dark World or had little to do with it, the major events related to the Dark World were his father's treason 20 years ago. Wang Tianzong killed Tianling 15 years ago. Situ Tsongyue killed Lu Tianqing 10 years ago. And Gu Qianchuan entered the Invincible Realm 5 years ago. These were the major events that had the greatest impact on the special warfare system of Jianghu State and the Dark World in the past 2 decades. But Dongqing Huangtu was not among them. Why was that? It couldn't be that Dongqing Huangtu died more than 20 years ago. At that time, Qin Weibai, who was 1 or 2 years old, could not have appeared at the airport. So, was the matter of Dongqing Huangtu concealed by Jianghu State? Or did Zhuang Huayang deliberately not say it? Li Tianlan shook his head and subconsciously touched his pocket. Qin Weibai, whose attention was almost all on Li Tianlan, bent down, pulled open the tea table, and took out a box of cigarettes. She said softly, "Are you looking for this?" "You?" Li Tianlan was stunned. "It's specially prepared for you, but it's not easy to get this brand of cigarettes. When it was sent here, you had already gone to the Sky Academy." Qin Weibai opened the cigarette package. It was a wooden box, light purple in color, with the word hero engraved in the middle. It was very intimidating. When the package was opened, it was different from the usual pack of 20 cigarettes. There were only 12 cigarettes in the box, slightly thicker than ordinary cigarettes, but the mouthpiece was nearly half the length. Qin Weibai put the cigarette in Li Tianlan's mouth and found a lighter to light it for him. She chuckled and said, "This hero cigarette is specially made by the Wang family of Beihai. It's for the core members of the Wang family of Beihai to enjoy. Its composition is also a little different from ordinary cigarettes. It is said that it can reduce the harm to the body. I got 3 boxes this time. You can give them to the old man later and let him take them to the Sky Academy for you. Zhuang Huayang won't stop you. If you carry 3 boxes of cigarettes by yourself, a lot of credits will be deducted according to the weight." "Where did you get this kind of cigarette?" Li Tianlan took a deep breath and asked, pretending to be calm. But Qin Weibai still heard a trace of displeasure in his tone that perhaps even Li Tianlan himself did not notice. She was slightly stunned and then understood. She shook her head and said, "I didn't get it from Wang Xiaoyao. After all, cigarettes are just consumables. The Wang family of Beihai doesn't control them strictly. It's not a big deal to get 3 boxes of hero." Li Tianlan smoked in silence and did not speak. Qin Weibai looked at him quietly for a while and subconsciously moved closer to Li Tianlan again. She said cautiously, "Are you angry? Wang Xiaoyao and I are not even ordinary friends. Except for the occasional contact in business, I never pay attention to him in private. It's him who keeps pestering me." "I'm not angry." Li Tianlan patted Qin Weibai's hand. Looking at her explaining seriously, he felt complicated inside, and there was a kind of complacency that made him a little ashamed. He laughed at himself, grabbed Qin Weibai's hand, and said softly, "When senior you told me that Wang Xiaoyao has been pursuing you these years, I did feel uncomfortable. Of course, I was unhappy, but I was not angry. To be exact, it was because my opponent was too strong. Maybe I felt a little inferior? A woman who the core high level of the Wang family of Beihai has been yearning for day and night for years is by my side. I'm obedient and good, but I always feel insecure. In the end, it's because I'm not promising now. If I enter the invincible realm now, my confidence will naturally come back. It's the same as a young boy and a young talented billionaire who values a girl at the same time. They are both sincere. How many people will choose the former? It's rare, and I actually met it. I'm narrow-minded. Just now, I was thinking how good it would be if you don't meet Wang Xiaoyao in the future. Look, narrow-minded, good for nothing, insecure, selfish. This is me. Don't talk about others looking down on me. Even I look down on myself." Qin Weibai had been watching Li Tianlan softly. After listening to him quietly, she said softly, "I don't like it when you talk about yourself like this." She paused and continued, "No matter how much Wang Xiaoyao has, it's the accumulation of the Wang family of Beihai for hundreds of years. Zhuan Yuantai of Kunlun has made great achievements. Who says you have nothing? You can carry the responsibility on your back and still don't give up. In my opinion, this alone shows that you are more responsible than most men. In my heart, you will be more capable and promising than anyone else in the future." Li Tianlan gritted his teeth and boldly reached out his hand. He gently lifted Qin Weibai's chin and made her look at him. Qin Weibai followed Li Tianlan's hand and raised her face. Her bright and clear eyes were full of trembling obedience and gentleness. Li Tianlan's forced heroism suddenly dissipated, but he didn't show it on the surface. He squinted and smiled. "More promising than Dongqing Huang too?" Qin Weibai suddenly stood up. Before Li Tianlan could react, she directly sat in Li Tianlan's arms. Li Tianlan subconsciously put his arms around the delicate body sitting on his lap. He only felt that it was really exquisite and fragrant. In a daze, Qin Weibai's firm and serious voice rang out. "Of course, You will be more promising than him because you have me by your side. But he has a woman who will stab him when he is in a desperate situation. She obediently lay in Li Tianlan's arms. After a moment of silence, she whispered to herself, "Only in your arms can I feel the most secure." Li Tianlan held Qin Weibai's body tightly. His voice was soft, but it carried an indomitable determination. "Just based on what you said, if I don't surpass Dong Qinghuang too, I won't have the face to be with you." Qin Weibai pursed her lips and smiled. She straightened up and said softly, "I have a document here. I'll show it to you." "No need." The tension in Li Tianlan's heart finally disappeared little by little, and he got along with his girlfriend more and more casually. Holding her body, he was really reluctant to let go. He laughed and said, "Just tell me the content directly." "But I haven't read it." Qin Weibai fixed her eyes on Li Tianlan and said softly, "When the document was sent here, I was already in Billy State. How about I bring the document and read it to you?" "Don't be so anxious. What's the content of the document?" Li Tianlan held Qin Weibai tightly and didn't let go. Qin Weibai didn't insist. She moved on Li Tianlan's leg. The softness and elasticity almost made Li Tianlan go crazy. But she didn't seem to notice it. She found the most comfortable position and said in a lazy tone, "It's about the Sky Academy. There are some students you need to pay attention to, those you can rope in, those you can't, and their strengths and weaknesses, martial arts inheritance, and standpoints should be recorded. There are also some teachers and senior officials. Their respective standpoints, temperament, and so on are almost recorded. But I haven't got any news about the leader of the assassination course group." After the last leader of the assassination course group of the Sky Academy died on a mission, the Enchantress has been acting for this course. But now it's a new session, and it's a very special one. Zhuang Huayang probably wants to invite a super killer who can completely control the situation. Such a person is most suitable for Sai City. Zhuang Huayang and Sai City have been talking, but it's still hard to say who the super killers of Sai City will be. So the information about the leader of the assassination course group was left out. Li Tianlan glanced at Qin Weibai and said softly, "Even so, it's great. For any student of the Sky Academy, this document is the most precious thing. I'll read it carefully. But as for the students, it's not a big deal. After the entrance maneuver, I can basically know the quality of those people. There are masters, but there are not many who can pose a great threat to me and stand against me." When saying this, his eyes were in a trance, and he suddenly thought of Wang Yuetong. If they didn't owe each other anything, how would they live in the Sky Academy in the future? "We can't be careless." Qin Weibai shook her head. This session of the Sky Academy is very special. In terms of the comprehensive strength of the students, it almost far surpasses that of the Deep Sea Academy in Yuzhou. The current situation can only mean that several young masters who are most likely to enter the Sky Academy haven't enrolled yet, but they won't wait too long. It's estimated that they'll be enrolled after this holiday. Although it's against the rules to enroll a little later, the rules are nothing more than human feelings, so it's not a big deal at all. Why is it like this? Li Tianlan raised his eyebrows, a little surprised. In his impression, the Sky Academy and the Deep Sea Academy were almost equal, but Qin Weibai said that the comprehensive quality of this session of students in the Sky Academy was far better than that of the Deep Sea Academy. Was there any special reason? Because of the current situation in Huating. Qin Weibai furrowed her delicate brows and said softly. The two hugged each other in a very ambiguous posture, but the content of the discussion was extremely serious. There are no wealthy families in Huating. This fat piece of meat has now been targeted by all parties. There are no wealthy families in Huating. Li Tianlan muttered to himself, a little incredulous. Huating was the economic engine of the entire Jianghu state, the most developed municipality, and one of the most prosperous international metropolises in the world. How could there be no wealthy families in such a place? It was simply incredible. Although it's a little exaggerated to say so, it's not a big exaggeration. Huating used to be full of wealthy families. A few years ago, it was the strongest fortress and back garden of the Wang family of Beihai. But 5 years ago, the Prince Group seized the opportunity to break through here. Qin Weibai explained seriously, the loss of Huating can be said to be the worst failure of the Wang family of Beihai in recent years. The Prince Group took over Huating, and all the major groups in Jianghu state began to infiltrate Huating. Until now, the situation in Huiting has been extremely chaotic. It's not an exaggeration to say that it's the battlefield of all the major groups. Under such circumstances, the original wealthy families in Huiting moved their headquarters to other places to avoid being affected. All of them have moved their headquarters to other places. Those who remain are basically local forces that are not weak but can hardly make it big. There are only a few that can really be called a powerful family in Jianghu state. Therefore, for you and all the other ambitious people, Huiting can be said to be the best place with the best environment right now. The situation is chaotic and muddy, but the pressure from above is not great. With all the major groups guarding against each other, Huiting can be said to be a crisis at every step, but also an opportunity at every step. With such a good opportunity, who doesn't want to come to Huiting to take a gamble? This is the real foundation of an emperor. Whoever can take advantage of the situation in Huiting and succeed with a small effort will become the top big shot in Jianghu state. In this way, not only do all the major groups send young talents to Huiting, but also some hidden experts can't sit still. This year in the Sky Academy is destined to be a turbulent time with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. You must pay attention to it. Qin Weibai explained patiently and exhorted him. Li Tianlan nodded silently, looking calm. In the information I collected, there are detailed records of several young experts who may enter the school late. Do you want to take a look now? Qin Weibai suddenly asked. Li Tianlan subconsciously tightened his arms around her body and shook his head without hesitation. No hurry, I won't take a look. Qin Weibai giggled in Li Tianlan's arms, but her hands around his neck tightened. Tianlan. Qin Weibai called him again, her voice sweet and sweet. Li Tianlan responded, narrowing his eyes with a look of enjoyment. I have a way to let you no longer feel inferior when facing people like Wang Xiaoyao, and you can even despise them. Do you want to know? Qin Weibai bit Li Tianlan's ear and whispered. Her sweet smell reached Li Tianlan's nostrils, and he seemed to feel limp and numb all over. He moved his body subconsciously, pulled Qin Weibai up from his arms, and looked her in the eyes. What way? I can let you enter the invincible realm overnight, okay? Qin Weibai blinked and smiled teasingly. Smack. Subconsciously, Li Tianlan slapped Qin Weibai's buttocks. It felt plump and bouncy to the touch. Admiring the shy and angry expression of the beauty in his arms, Li Tianlan's so-called inferiority complex seemed to be disappearing bit by bit. He reached out and slapped her again. Smiling, he said, seriously? You're not serious. You're tuning in to the Wisdom Diary YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.